Howdy, ho ho, my good humans. How the hell are you doing? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I'm Brandon Sylvia. I'm joined by the homie Loon in the building. How are you, man? How was the weekend?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Plenty of news this week, tons of it dropping, and some interesting news that dropped and then was backtracked, and then it was kind of just all over the place that we'll get
Yeah.
into, that was just funny trying to unravel all that.
Yeah, that was I assume that'll probably be one of our bigger topics of discussion today. That was a whirlwind of a shitstorm. Um, but yeah, dude, I'm pumped for the show today. Like you said, we have a ton to cover, so we will not waste much of your time with the early introductory ramblings here. I don't know if you saw this, Loon. Harold Halibut, it's coming to Game Pass. The stop motion
Mhm.
claymation sort of adventure game. It just dropped a bunch of reviews. The review
Yeah,
embargo just do you saw that?
I think I saw IGN's like coverage of it when I was doing something earlier, and it seems to be getting fairly good reviews.
I'm gonna update it over here. Let's see. Let's see. It's sitting at a 76 on Metacritic currently out of like what, 16 reviews, I think. Um, yeah, it seems to be doing pretty well. I can't lie, I'm a little bit surprised. The thing I keep seeing in a lot of these review, recap summaries is that it's pretty damn long, like kind of overstays its welcome. That seems to be like the main criticism that it's like 15, 20 hours. It's like, oof,
For
that's
a point
tough
and
for,
click adventure, holy shit.
yeah, which I think you do get
Usually
full
they
control.
usually they cut off at like 8 hours because it's really long.
Yeah, thankfully you do get full control of your character and all that, so it is like you can move around these spaces and you're actually able to explore a little bit, and they got some arcades and shit supposedly that you can go and interact with. So it seems to be punching well above its weight class, but I don't love the idea of playing an adventure game for 20 hours. But hey, it's coming to Game Pass. I know that Tales of Kinzera Zhao and Dave the Diver are both coming to PlayStation Plus this month. So we got some good day one drops for anybody who is in those services. I just thought that Harold Halibut, just looking at it, is one of my most anticipated games of the year. So and it's today, or by the time you're watching it, it'll be available on Game Pass. So we obviously, I haven't played it yet because as we're recording, it's not available on Game Pass, but definitely next week, stop back by on the channel and I will probably, I don't know, 20 hours. I might not have finished it by next week, but I'll probably be pretty close to it.
I mean, I'm shocked you'll be diving in at all for a while after how many Walking Dead games you've been slamming for.
I guess we can transition right on into that. We'll talk about what we've been playing. So I did finish the full Walking Dead, all four games plus Michonne, and yeah, but listen, it was a it was a damn pleasant journey. I really like I couldn't put it down. Once I kind of began the journey with Lee and Clem, I just wanted to see the whole thing through, and I I was thinking, would you, because you've played all of them as well, except for the fourth season, right?
Yeah,
Would you be down to do like a ranking?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's kind of quick on the fly here. I should have prepared you a bit for this, but let's go and find a damn tier list, and we'll do a good old Walking Dead tier ranking. So, all right, guys, I had to make a quick adjustment because every tier list that I went to, they didn't have Michonne on there. So I had to create my own tier list here for you all. And as you see, we got all of the Walking Dead Telltale games here. And I figured instead of, because I talked about the games last week and figured just a more fun conversation would be since Luna's played every single game here except season four. Uh, why don't
I
we go?
dipped into it. It was about an hour and a half of season
Okay.
four, and it kind of turned me off. So
Interesting. So I guess we'll begin there because season four is my least favorite.
Yeah,
like by a good chunk. To me, season four felt like it felt like they sacrificed a lot of the choice and the freedom within that to give you more freedom in the gameplay. And they tried to make it
yeah,
more, a little bit more action oriented in certain parts. And you actually had like real time commands that you could input. And like, you could bash the zombie in the knee with B and then hit him over the head with Y. And it, I appreciate the attempt, but it didn't quite feel right. Like it didn't feel responsive enough to warrant them taking a lot of the freedom and the decision making away. So that would be my least favorite. Um, I guess since there's only 5 games, well, I don't think it's a D tier. Well, we'll just. What do you think about C tier?
um, I think it'd be interesting to have them each in their own slot, to be fair. Like, I don't think when you're looking at stuff that is like a D, like usually it's not like a D, but of these five, I think it is definitely last place
Yeah.
for me.
You know what? Let's throw it in the C tier, and then after it, we'll number these. You know what? Actually, no. We'll go ahead and number them now, and then we'll throw it in last spot. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it's like a D tier game. Like I wouldn't rate it. If I think of D, I think of 6 out of 10.
Mm,
So it's like I wouldn't put it there, but it is, in my opinion, the worst out of all of these games for me personally. I know some people really loved it. It had a decently satisfying conclusion to the series, but yeah, it would be my least favorite as well. Um, let me hit me with what you would consider your favorite of these games, just to go on the polar opposite end of the spectrum.
it would be a toss up between season one and season three.
So I would
Oh,
I would go season one as my personal favorite. I think that you can't replicate that Lee story. They tried
yeah.
many times for different characters to, have that same sort of emotional build up and connection, whether it be to Clementine or different characters. Um, and there's moments with Kenny in season two, and there's moments that are strong, and I appreciate what they're going for, trying to replicate it, but it just never hit those same highs as Lee in season one for me. Um,
I
but
think I'd agree with you.
okay,
First place. It feels very similar to like a Last of Us is what they were trying to accomplish. But obviously having the burden of being a Telltale game, they couldn't do stuff on the gameplay department. But for like a story perspective, it's extremely strong.
for sure. And crazy, it's like it came out before The Last of Us, so it's
Mm,
in a lot of ways, I'm not, of course, I believe the first season came out in 2012, Last of Us came out in 2013, so it's not like Naughty Dog was able to mimic that. They had both, Telltale and The Walking Dead had a similar idea for the story at a similar time, and it just so happened that The Walking Dead season one dropped before. But I just think that ending for season one, I don't
yeah.
think that there's like anything even close with the rest of these games for the just gut punch.
It's
Um,
because it's something that can't be replicated. Because if they did that every single season, it would lose its impact. So
I agree.
yeah, it was a
I
very strong finish.
I I am in a toss up between season two and season three for my number two slot. But I think since you would debatably put season three ahead of season one, like it's a toss up for you, I think we got to go season three in the second slot. You cool with that?
Yeah, like season two isn't bad, but
No.
I think it also because it shifted so much away and gave us so many new fresh characters and stuff like that. It was a nice change of pace. The writing style also seemed to be a little bit different, which I welcomed. So yeah,
Yeah, it was silly in a lot of ways. Season three, like love triangles going on, and you had
yeah,
like all this silly drama that really wasn't in like the grit and survival wasn't necessarily as ever present as it was in season one and season two, and even Michonne and four. Like this just felt like and playing them back to back like I did, it was actually a nice change of pace because it was so different from
mm,
all the other seasons. Like you said, totally new cast of characters with some classic characters being reintroduced throughout the storyline. And yeah, as silly as it was, as schlocky as it could be at times, I really enjoyed the characters, and it just felt very grandiose. It felt like very large scale moments. Like some of the most memorable moments took place in season three.
Yep.
So I guess that between season two and Michonne, which would you rank
Season
higher?
two
Okay, so
would have to
simple.
be. Yeah. The
Season two,
continuation from season one story and Clementine's struggles and stuff like that. I think it, it was very, very strong
yeah,
and very, very dark.
yes.
Like really, really damn dark.
Yeah, I think once again talking about endings that stuck with me, and that's the thing is like obviously I played them in order. It's funny that the first games I played, so the games I played least recently, stick with me much more. They're all their endings stick with me much more than the, four season four and Michonne. Like I remember what happened, but like it's not as much of an impact as season
Yeah,
one and season two, which is really and just the survival elements of season two. Like they really honed in on that. The, Clementine stitching herself up and sneaking in through that cabin at the opening section, and the final moment there, the choice, like once again just nailing that gritty nature. Michonne at four, I think that's a good spot. I thought it was good. I thought it was pretty good actually. Like a solid 7.5 out of 10, something like that if you were to rate it. It was just like I wasn't, because the thing about season three is it connected to characters that we already knew. This was like totally on an island. Michonne was. So, and the
yeah,
flashback sequences, like it just really it hurt the pacing for me. I understood why they did it because they really leaned into the psychological horror. This is probably the only game out of all of them that scared me at all. Like there was a couple jump scares where I was like, "Oh wow, that's," and a couple really really dark moments with, the flashbacks with their kids and shit, and they had some
yeah.
dark shit in there. I just didn't care about the characters a ton.
Yeah, it was more of a bone to be thrown to the people who like the TV show,
Yep.
expanding and fleshing out a character because she becomes a really prominent figure in that TV show. Like she's not a background character, like she even equals like Rick and stuff like that of like prominence throughout the story towards the end. And I think in the TV show they did touch upon her like her origins, but this just, it gave a little bit more meat to them instead of like a 5-10 minute cut of an hour long episode and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that is our Walking Dead game ranking finale with the series is now on the back. Actually, I bought Game of Thrones, the physical copy. I bought Back to the
That
Future.
nice,
Yep,
nice, nice.
the physical copy of that. And I obviously already have the Wolf Among Us and Batman and all that. Like I kind of am debating doing a Telltale. Like I'm not gonna replay through all the games I've already finished. I might play through The Wolf Among Us again if season two, or season two gets announced at E3 Summer Games Fest, whatever the hell they call it, and it's supposed to come out this year. I doubt that's gonna happen. I doubt it's ever gonna come out. But if it actually does end up coming out, I will play through The Wolf Among Us one again. Um, but so Back to the Future. I've never played that. I played through Jurassic Park this year. I haven't played through Game of Thrones. Are there any other kind of
Have you seen the TV show of Game of Thrones?
uh-uh.
See, I think you're gonna fall into the camp of really not liking it.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people who didn't touch the show, it didn't gel with them because the whole premise of the show is you hate everybody. There's no likable characters in Game of Thrones, really. You kind of like gravitate towards like a house, which is like, one of the families and stuff, and then you like rooting for them, but it's a lot of like espionage and backstabbing and double crossing and just really dickish characters and snakes.
Does Telltale have any other like
Marvel's
kind
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I played that.
Um,
Um, I
the
think I
Batman games, like we said.
played those, finished both of those seasons. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I haven't. I mean, I know they had like the old point and click games. I really don't care to play those. Like I want to play their,
Oh, what,
adventures.
like Sam and Max?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you played those?
No, but I've seen them. They look alright, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to get into them. Like I tried getting through like Grim Fandango. Like I really love a lot of the aspects, but it's just so slow.
Yeah.
So hard to get the ball rolling of the enjoyment of that. But yeah, I think that's everything that they did.
Yeah, and
Can't
that's
think of
just
anything else.
I'm the same with Game of Thrones, the same with The Walking Dead though. So like, and I know that obviously it's much different as The Walking Dead. They're their own standalone characters created for this Telltale universe, but so I wonder maybe that can I often get into bigger universes by getting into a game first. So I hope that's the
Hmm.
case with Game of Thrones, but like you said, I don't have the highest of expectations as it's just not generally considered one of the better Telltale games in general.
I think
Um,
it's also because they never made a season two because they lost everything and obviously they went under.
right.
So a lot of threads were left untied, and it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, what have you been playing, man? That's pretty much been. I mean, I have a couple other games I'll shout out real quick, but nothing. That's been the majority of my time has been pointing and clicking and then making some decisions.
I didn't touch Dragon's Dogma at all this week.
Nice.
I've been bouncing between so many different things. I think I said last week that I was coming towards the end of Assassin's Creed Rogue. I think I had like two memory sequences left of that, and I ended up finishing that up. Really underrated entry in the series. A lot of people skipped on it because of moving to Unity and the new generation of consoles. But like its its story ties like directly into Unity. Like it's important that you play Rogue to get the full picture of Unity as well, which is kind of strange that they did that, considering they were like, we'll put a game out for the 360 and then we want people to be moving on to the next gen. So it's a very strange thing to have done. But yeah, really, really good wrap up to that story.
Yeah.
Um, sorry.
So are you kind of like in a Assassin's Creed mode right now, or is it just kind of that was just one you wanted to jump into that you never played before or never finished before?
I was just flicking through like shorter games
Yep.
and it was like sub 8 hours on average that I was looking for. And that popped up and I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I did a traditional Assassin's Creed game, like 2 years. Why not? And
It's
I
kind of
enjoyed it because I'd started it before and done like 2 hours of it, but had just fallen off and done other stuff. But yeah, it's a really good game.
it's kind of crazy. We're in a very similar mindset, seemingly. Because I was doing the same thing. I was wanting to play shorter games. I don't I after Dragon's Dogma and Final Fantasy and Outcast and Rise of the Ronin and just even WWE 2K that was like 40 hours. So it's like I was definitely on the lookout for some shorter, smaller scale experiences. And I actually jumped into and finished Firewatch. My first time ever playing Firewatch. And we had talked about this before when you were like, dude, because we were talking about kind of cliffhanger endings, and you were like,
Mm.
wait until you get to Firewatch. And boy, you are not lying. What the hell, man? That kind of
It,
like ruins the whole thing.
it's so baffling because it's a really slow and serene experience in the beginning, and then it starts throwing in these weird little horror moments like out of nowhere and gets kind of creepy. Then it goes a little bit more creepy. And then obviously, it's in the name of Firewatch, the fire happens. And you're like getting towards the end. And this character that you've been with, not obviously with, you're on the radio constantly talking to them. They've kept you company the whole time. It just nothing. Like build up, build up, build up, build up, build up, and then just nothing. And
Yeah.
it was just like, did I miss something? Because I played for it twice. I played for it again
Yeah,
like to make different choices and see if like did I miss the ending? Like did I do something to mess it? No, it's just I don't understand it.
it's really wild, man. Like I thought the game was fantastic up until that. I mean, I shouldn't say fantastic. I thought it was good. It was very, very compelling throughout the entire runtime, which what is it, 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. It's not
Yeah, it's a
long at
very, very
all.
short game.
But they don't waste any time. You do, you're wandering around, kind of get lost a little bit, backtrack, get back up to your camp or get back up to the tower. So I guess I should set it up. You take on a job as like your lookout for this watchtower and everything, going according to plan. There's a setup at the beginning of the game that's pretty dark. Your wife has early onset dementia or something, dementia,
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, something like that, and
Yeah.
she's like slowly losing her memory, and you kind of escape to this watchtower job, which, I think the biggest thing about this game is it's kind of putting you in the role of somebody who has to encounter a really fucked up scenario and seeing the decisions and choices you would make if you were in that spot. And I get that, but that's not really the shoes I ever put myself in as the player of a video game. Like, I wouldn't make the same choices I make in a video game as I would in real life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to find the most interesting outcome in a game, while in life, I rarely am trying to find the most interesting outcome. Like, I'm often just trying to survive and trying to, do
Live to
what
that next paycheck, man. Come on.
yeah, like I'm not going on bank heists and shit in real life. I know that that's not the wisest thing to do in reality, but in a game, sure. And it's kind of the same thing here. It's like if you're gonna test my moral boundary, like I'm going to fail that test in a video game because I don't for one, I don't know anything about these characters. You hit me immediately with this heartfelt, super, sad opening, but like there was no build up to that. I don't know anything about these characters. So was my wife an asshole before this all like you got to give me some more context because now I'm running off into the woods and I might make some bad decisions. But you end up running into
Yeah,
this.
it was a strange plot point.
Yeah, but I really liked how they set up the mystery angle where you end up running into this couple. I believe they're out and they're shooting fireworks
Yeah.
where they're not supposed to, and then you're telling them, hey, look, we can't be shooting fireworks out here. It's super dangerous. You're gonna catch the whole goddamn forest on fire. But they have a vendetta against you, and they go and cut your telephone or your communication lines seemingly, and they leave out these notes and messages and beer cans and all this shit, which makes you suspect, okay, these people are kind of like tracking us down and they're out for blood. They're out for vengeance. They want to mess up our stay out here, whatever the hell I'm trying to say. But it gets a lot more creepy than that. You uncover more clues that lead you to believe there might be something more nefarious afoot, that it's not these, random teenagers out here doing this shit because you're running into clues that seem much more involved, something that a couple kids couldn't really get their hands on this type of material to be uh, we'll just say watching people or
Yeah.
tracking people of some sort. And so it kind of becomes this feeling of you're being hunted in the woods, and it's this very big, vast forest, and you're like out of any corner, something could just pop up, and it becomes pretty damn. It becomes like a thrill ride.
Yeah. Because it also helps that you're the only person out there. You're like in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Like these outposts are built and then miles apart is the other person that you're working with. That is it. That is all the contact that you have. Even the contact with them two girls. It's not up close contact. Like it's a very lengthy distance away. So it always that the game builds towards that of loneliness and everything just seems to be out of your reach. Not only the knowledge that you're gaining of the game, but just even just human contact. And I think that's kind of the theme that they were trying to connect with like the wife and stuff like that of, you know, being just driven apart and stuff. But uh, like you said,
Yeah.
when you give no build up and stuff and it's just placed right in front of you, it's just like, I don't know this person. So
Yeah. And if you're going to give me choices to make that seem more seem more interesting. Like I'm probably going to lean that route. But yeah, it is a very isolating feeling, isolated world. And I don't know. I really enjoyed it up until the cliffhanger ending. Really, everything
Mm.
else about it, thought it was well written. I thought uh, we should also say it's fully voice acted. So like you that is one thing that is pretty impressive. Usually most indie games don't have full voice acting going on. So the story is able to hit a lot for me a lot harder whenever you actually do have people and you can uh, take away tone at which they're speaking and have a voice to kind of go with the name and like yeah. So it was impressive from a storytelling perspective. I d- don't think it's like a must play title, but it's a good 3 hour narrative adventure game. First person kind of walking sim.
Yeah, the delivery of the characters, not only is it fully voice acted, but their delivery on the lines was very good as well. Like they were very strong. And that's kind of like the gut punch, like you said. You get all this build up and then there's no payoff.
Yeah.
So it's just like you put all this effort in as well, and there's no payoff.
Yeah.
So
I agree 100%. What
yeah.
else you been playing though? Is there anything else on your list
Um
in
Quite a few games. Like I said, I've been bouncing between stuff. Um I picked up Dragon Quest 11 again, began playing through a little bit more of that. And it's a fun game, but it's just not 100% landing with me. I think I'll end up finishing it eventually, but it's not something that's making me like really, really excited to get back into. So I kind of phased off of that a little bit and ended up picking up a book and finishing that up because that was more compelling. Um, and it was a book heavily tied with like D&D and stuff like that. So I finished up. I think I had like about 8 chapters left or so of that.
what was the book?
Finished that up. It was called Critical Roles: The Mighty Nine, The Nine Eyes of Lucien, and yeah, it just follows a tiefling who it's a really dark story. Like a tiefling who lives in the circus with his family, and the family end up it has the mother and father, him, his sister, and his brother dies, and the family just won't. The mother and father just don't accept it and end up like making a deal with like a witch to make him into like a puppet boy, like a fleshy puppet boy to keep him alive.
Ooh.
And it really affects the solution character who you follow his story through. And it really screws with him mentally. And he ends up splitting with his sister and stuff, and they go down like two different like life paths. Like she goes down a path of like I'm gonna marry into success, whereas he is like a trickster and stuff like this and runs the streets and just tries to survive by any means necessary. He's like sleeping in people's basements and stuff like that. He ends up joining an order who does like blood magic and stuff, and it just snowballs out of control. Like he ends up meeting these mercenaries, and that's when he finds this like book in this ruin, and like power just goes straight to his head.
Mm.
And it's just this snowballing of just how far he just pushes it every single time. He should just realize that that's the limit that you should be going. He's like, no, we'll go one more, and he just loses. He loses everybody around him. Everybody pays the price for it, and yeah,
That's
doesn't end
interesting.
well for him.
Yeah, it's crazy because I actually more of my week this week has been spent with non-gaming related media as well, which is an absolute phenomenon for me. I am rarely ever consuming any content other than games, but I and we'll talk about Fallout TV show in a little bit and talk because that's kind of news related. I guess we'll lead that discussion into the first news story. But I finished up the X-Men, the 97.
Mhm.
I got through well, I didn't finish it. They're still, going to put out new episodes each week, but there were like three of them that I hadn't watched yet, three, four, and five. So I watched all of those. And so now that I have, which I should say, fucking excellent, like unbelievably, unbelievably good, just a great continuation off of the 92. X-Men 92, the animated series, which is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I'm actually kind of an X-Men Evolution stan. That's always been my weird hill that I'll die on is I love X-Men Evolution. Like I think I prefer it over X-Men 92, which is sacrilegious to most. Um but yeah, X-Men 97 it's just beyond incredible. And the finale, the kind of cap for episode 5, just like gut punch of all gut punches. And I I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for I think they're doing 10 episodes, so we're halfway through. And boy, that close to the first half of the series has been it was something strong. Um but yeah, I got Amazon Prime, which I have no interest in pretty much anything that's on Amazon Prime, but I got it for Fallout. And I really want to watch Roadhouse, Jake
All right,
Gyllenhaal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard like mixed things on it, but I really want to watch it because I love the original. I haven't had the chance to watch that yet, but I think that's going to be this week. I think I'm going to try to watch Roadhouse, and I think I'm going to try to watch comedy movie, John Cena, Andrew Santino. Uh, I'm losing the names. Something with an S. I'll throw it in here, but it's John Cena, Andrew Santino, and Zac Efron is like the big three cast, and it's supposed to be like a raunchy kind of old school comedy.
I've seen clips of it. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, I think I
I,
saw an airport clip. It was quite funny.
I'm gonna type in John Cena comedy. That way I don't have to edit a bunch of shit in here. Ricky Stenicki. Ricky Stenicki, yeah. It's supposed to be pretty raunchy, like a good old school comedy. So I'm gonna try to get my bang for my buck out of Amazon Prime while I still have the subscription for the month. So I think that's gonna be my week. Harold Halibut, Ricky Stenicki, and Roadhouse next week. But you've been playing some Baldur's Gate, haven't you?
Yeah, that's kind of what after finishing the book, it's heavily inspired by D&D. I think it even is D&D. I think that's what Critical Role is. It's them they do like an online kind of like podcast
Yeah.
campaigns and stuff.
Dude, did you
Uh,
see that Baldur's Gate 3 like swept it won every like big game of the year award that it was nominated for? It's the first game ever, I think, that won like BAFTA, Keeley's
It
Game Award.
deserves it. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's wild.
It, for it, look, I said this before when we was talking about like CRPGs and me saying that like Pathfinder is like my goat and how I have to approach them. Like I never dive in and then we'll finish that playthrough. Like I need to dip into all these characters and take my time. Like I'm never rushing through. This is my fourth character in Baldur's Gate 3 of like not getting out of Act 1. This is the one I'm going to be getting out of Act 1 with. It's a rogue. I'm having a blast with it. But the thing that speaks volumes to this game is you're talking, I've created four characters, and every single campaign I've done, you're talking like 22 hours minimum with each of these characters. And I've seen something majorly different in every single one of them campaigns, in them starting areas, bumping into like massive characters that have like lore significance, or finding a completely hidden area, or choosing this choice and it going down a completely different path and everything. Like it really is like I know people are probably sick of hearing about it, but it deserves all the awards that it gets. It is a one of a kind game.
Yeah. Dude, I cannot wait. I think that thing's supposed to ship to us. Hopefully, I think the last thing they said was like May, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
It's been pushed back like a
it
month
got
every other
delayed.
month. Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to dive into that thing. Cannot freaking wait. I hope to God it gets here. My big concern is if it does slip again like another couple months and it hits August, it might be shit out of luck for me in Baldur's Gate 3 this year. Because I imagine, well, we know Star Wars Outlaws, which we'll talk about, got
Yeah.
its release date. I imagine that Assassin's Creed Red will probably come out this year. They're talking about Dragon Age 4 is still going to come out in 2024. So like that'll be a packed end of the year with huge games. So that would, and then that would push Baldur's Gate 3 back into 2025, which we know is already pretty stacked with big games and there probably many more to come. So I'm hoping I'm praying to God it doesn't get delayed again.
Yeah, I think I know you obviously want to try it. I think it would be good if it got delayed though. At the same time, saving it for like a complete lull period where you'd just be able to sink your teeth in big instead of it feeling like you're going to be on an hourglass timer to try and maybe push through enough so that you can say that you've seen enough so that you can get in before Outlaws and stuff releases. Because
Yeah.
it is such a juggernaut, man.
But see, that's the thing. If it can hit that May date, that would kind of be perfect because right now it's looking like May to August is totally vacant. Like there's really it's a wasteland of nothing from May to August. So if it could come in like mid-May and I could play it through June, July, up to Outlaws in August, because I play games like I think we're probably in a similar camp. I probably play about 20, 25 hours of games each week. And so if that's the case, May, June, July, 60 hours, I would be cool with that. And there's always like those Dragon's Dogma 2 moments where I'll have a free day and
Yeah.
I'm like, I schedule out a full day where it's like nothing but Dragon's Dogma 2, nothing but Baldur's Gate 3. So like, it could be one of those things where I could get 70, 80 hours in a couple months if I'm really like vibing with it and I prioritize it over social engagement and well-being. But dude, yeah, I mean, I'm pumped to hear that this is kind of the character that is really clicking with you and you're kind of not coming around on it. You were already really hot on it, but like coming around on it to a whole new high, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's the campaign that I'll be seeing through to the end
Yeah,
of like dipping my finger in each of these other ones and then being like, yep, this is the one. Everything just clicks.
that's fucking awesome, man. Uh, you have anything else you wanted to shout out?
Um, so there was two other things. One was very, very briefly, and it hurt because I really wanted to enjoy it. Did you ever catch Have a Nice Death? Was the name of the game?
I don't think so.
I think it was shown. It was like last year at one of the award shows, and it was kind of
Oh,
the
it looked like
Grim
Death's Door.
Reaper. Yeah, kind of a
Okay.
Grim Reaper like Hollow Knight kind of thing.
Oh, okay. I think I do know what you're talking about. I think I do know what you're talking about. Black and whitish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really fun. Getting through the tutorial, three quarters of the way through. Like hell yeah, I'm like really, really wanting to get through like a Metroidvania kind of thing, and then just nothing works. I can't jump, I can't attack, just all inputs cease to function. And I was like, it's a bit strange. I was like, all right. And I like got out a couple of other controllers. I was like, please don't say that this controller is broken that quick. Like this is I've had this controller for like 2 weeks. Nothing working still. And I was like, okay, I'll reboot the game. I reboot it. It doesn't auto save that progress, so I have to do like 20 minutes of tutorials again. And I'm like, okay, fine, fine. Get through to the exact same spot, and the exact same thing happens. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Like, am I missing something, or is like something screwed up? And it turns out that on Xbox, at least, you need to play with like a wired connection, otherwise the inputs just stop working.
Oh,
And I
Jesus.
don't understand how that has not been patched still. Because it was one of the things I picked up on the spring sale. So I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, man. Like 70% off, let's go. Or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, this is the perfect time to jump in. And it
Yeah.
just, yeah, I went from being red, red hot onto it to just being, yeah, it's frozen. And I'm just like, oh God, man, that really sucks.
I'm looking at the trailer now. This is striking visually, man. It is absolutely
Exactly.
gorgeous from a
It's
visual artistic
and the
perspective.
combat was really cool when it was working, and then it just stopped.
Yeah,
So
I'm waiting for the trailer to get to the combat. Right now, it's just showing this crazy animation. So it has cutscenes and shit.
I didn't even get that far. That's the
Oh, right,
horrible
right,
part.
right.
Like literally like 15, 20 minutes. It had a good sense of humor as well. Oh no, there was an intro cutscene. Yeah, it was really well done. Him sitting in like his office and stuff,
Yeah,
and
it seems
getting
like
he's doing like paperwork.
yeah.
It's very similar to funnily enough, like Grim Fandango, where like he's just become like a corporate shill because it goes from him being like a really big buff Grim Reaper, and then he starts shrinking and shrinking, and then he just becomes a kid because yeah,
This is crazy. Man, it's so wild how that's it never used to be like this, where there could be a legitimately great video game that comes out and you're just not aware of it because there's like 7,000 great video games that come out
yeah.
each year. Because this looks amazing, which I'm not a huge 2D guy, but this looks unbelievable. Is it super challenging from what you played? Well, you just, yeah, like you said, tutorial.
No, literally, I have no idea. The combat was really fluid. Like I said, it felt one to one like a Hollow Knight. So,
Wow. Yeah, that looks incredible, man. That looks really, really fucking good.
so
That's
I
a
need to go
shame.
fork out some more payments and get a USB-C cable to plug into the controller because I want to finish it. It was really fun.
It's funny you bring that
So,
up. I play with a wired controller for my Xbox because I hate batteries. It's a yeah, so I guess it's perfect game for me.
and then the only other thing I was doing is literally just before we hopped on, getting an achievement itch to try and get another 100% done is a F1 Manager 23. Checking off all the stuff in there. I have one left, which is kind of time consuming. Unfortunately, it's forced me to go into another season. Kind of wanted to wrap it up before the show started, but just fell a little bit short. But a
Yeah.
really fun and underrated management game, and it's really not sold well. I think they were contracted to make free games, Frontier. So we have one more game coming, and then I don't think they're going to be doing this series anymore
Oh man, that's a bummer
from
because
2024 onward.
that's like your shit, ain't it? That's one of your like kind of time sink games.
Yeah, Football Manager is
Oh,
on a
Football
yearly basis.
Manager.
Thankfully, that's doing a hell of a lot better. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of the F1 Manager games, and it's yeah, management games really just don't do well on console, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it is
So
true. Well, dude, that is well, actually, there's one more game I've been checking out. Or well, I checked out. I finished it. It's really short. It's called Loretta. It's a 2D adventure game. You're playing as this woman who is a murderer, and she kills her husband, and she's trying to like avoid being arrested and avoid detectives that are coming into her home and telling lies, and they're interrogating her. And so like you're trying to essentially you're playing as a murderer, and you're trying to not get her convicted for murder. So it's kind of dark, right? Really, really dark, actually. You're making dialogue decisions and stuff, but the cool thing is you also make decisions in gameplay. Like you can attempt to early on in the game, you have this detective who comes into your house and he's questioning you about your husband disappearing, and there's a part in it which I won't spoil, but y- like it's not really a spoiler because, like I said, you get to make different decisions, but you can essentially get killed in this very first encounter with the detective, and you have to restart and like try a whole different route. And so it's pretty cool that there are actual consequences for your action in this game. It's not just like the illusion of choice. And I put this to the test. I went back and I tried to get different endings for the game, like make different choices and get different endings. And there are actual like legitimately, I think I got three different endings, but there are multiple different endings that are drastically different for this character. And you can even at the early start of the game, you can choose not to kill your husband, which I didn't even know that. So like
oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so the big hook of the game, they kind of essentially just throw that out the window if you choose not to poison your husband, which is once again, it kind of fucks with you as the player where you're like, "Oh damn." So it's kind of on me. Like this chick wasn't she wasn't just gonna kill her. Like that's on me. And So yeah, it was pretty cool. It's just and just once again, I'm kind of in this adventure game phase right now where, and I really had no idea what this game was. I just saw a trailer of it and it looked dark and creepy, a nice thriller. I was like, okay, cool. I'll check it out. Like I said, only about 3 hours, nothing mind blowing, but a good thriller narrative. And I think it was $12 on Xbox. So it's like, absolutely. I do not mind that whatsoever. And once you finish the game, you can just replay chapters. So like you don't have to go back
Oh,
and
godsend.
absolutely, yes, 100%. So if anybody is looking for a good narrative kind of choose your own adventure, check out Loretta. Very, very cheap and quite disturbing. But it is all text based and stuff, so like you don't, you don't have the voice acting and shit, but it's definitely a game that was made on a budget. You can tell that, but I think with what they were able to create with the freedom and the choice and consequence, I I'm cool with not having voice acting if that's
That
the
sounds cool.
payoff. Yeah, man. Um, but really, other than that, that has been all I have played. But I have, like we talked about earlier, I've been watching some shit. And you said that that's everything you've played as well.
Yeah, that's everything ticked off for me.
But I have watched and finished and binged the shit out of the Fallout television show. This was a real surprise for me, Loon. I am not a crazy Fallout fan. I like three. I like New Vegas. I think four is fine. Um, I love this show. I watched the first like two episodes and I was like, okay, I think I'll probably keep going, but I wasn't crazy about it one way or the other. And then like I watched three and four, and after four, I was like, okay, this is the shit. This absolutely rules. And so I binged through, I watched the final four episodes all last night. And so it's still fresh on my mind. I'm still thinking about the plot. I'm still thinking about where they're going to go from here. And thankfully, it has been renewed for a second season. I will absolutely be there day one. I'm not a subscription service guy, but Amazon has me with that. No doubt about it. I'll be back for season two, paying them their fucking whatever, $15 a month or whatever crazy price they're charging. But have you watched any of this? Do you have any interest in this?
I mean, I have interest. I always had interest. I just never felt like they would probably do it justice. But no, I wasn't going to be rushing in day one because I didn't do that for Halo, and I've not watched Halo. I've not watched The Last of Us, and I've not watched this. But the general reception seems to be really, really strong, especially from, this is now considered, Xbox's side of stuff. Halo wasn't perceived well that first season. It was really, really badly received, and season two seems to be kind of a little bit better. But yeah, at least this first season seems to be doing really well for Fallout. It's meant
Yeah,
to be like mix, it mixes in comedy, doesn't it? From what I saw, like just
that is
stupid dark comedy and just
Lone. That is the thing I wanted to bring up over anything else. That is what kept me watching the show because even see episode one and episode two, like I wasn't crazy about the writing per se. I wasn't crazy about the characters per se, but I loved the comedy. And it's comedy that would make uh, how do I say this? Like it feels like comedy that would make comedians laugh. Like
mm,
it doesn't feel like comedy that's geared towards soccer moms. And like that is it's so important for me because like I don't like I can't find humor in just I can't personally find humor in shit that's not a little bit offensive. For me personally, like I need something that's just a little bit it just feels like it's slightly shocking. You know what I mean? Because
something that
just
would catch your attention. If you're walking through a room and you hear that out of the corner of your ear, you go, "Wait, what?" It
exactly
it just yeah, it draws your attention.
something that kind of makes you pause and like you said, go, wait, what the hell did they just say? Like they have multiple moments that, and it's nothing crazy. Like it's not, I don't need, horribly, horribly offensive shit to laugh at, but shit that's just like, wow, okay. They multiple times throughout this season, there were jokes that made me go, wow, I did not expect that out of this character. And just the way that, because you have your characters who are, you have Maximus, who is the Brotherhood of Steel, and so you have like three main characters. Maximus is with the Brotherhood of Steel. His whole kind of journey is about proving his worth within that faction. And then you have the so you have Lucy, and she's a vault dweller. She was born in the vault,
Yeah.
and that's kind of all she knows. And she is like just as charismatic as can possibly be. But boy, she is when she interacts with the wasteland, she's not necessarily built for that lifestyle.
No,
And
the clip they used in the trailer, which made me, it's not something like you said, overtly offensive, but it was just such a Fallout thing where she's like talking to this other person who's like a wastelander, and he's like, "Can I have like a drink, please?" And she like gives him the water, and he just downs it, and she's like, "Uh, I could like, oh, okay."
And she's constantly in those scenarios because she's so pure-hearted. She's always trying to
Mm.
help people, and she's in this wasteland, this post-apocalyptic wasteland, who everybody is out for their self. And so it takes her. I mean, I would say she really doesn't ever come to reach the point where she is like she's self-reliant, but she's always like sabotaging herself to help other people throughout the entire season. And she's like one of the most charming characters that I've ever seen in any media. Like she is so goddamn likable. And then the interesting dynamic is the third main character. He kind of ties everything together. It's the Walter Goggins dude. He
Yeah, the
plays
ghoul.
Yes. He
Yeah.
plays the ghoul, but he also plays like the main his main actual character is really the central through line for everything connecting, like all the dots connect through his main character. I believe his name is Howard. Um
Okay.
and they call him Coop throughout the show. And he was like a Hollywood actor. And so they flash back to his life as a Hollywood actor. And I'll just say that's really the important through line, him as a Hollywood actor to how everything came to be. So that's how they set everything up, and they do it through flashback sequences, which I typically don't love, but it really worked for me here. And yeah, it's just he's a mercenary kind of bounty hunter outlaw. Like he's a bad motherfucker throughout the show. And yeah, I loved it. I was really impressed by how cozy this universe is for like a post-apocalyptic, setting. Usually you're gonna have hard, heavy-hitting, dark, depressing themes. But man, this is such a cozy TV series. Like it's every single time I put it on, it was so easy for me to fall asleep. And I know that sounds kind of like a backhanded compliment, but like it was just so cozy that I would be watching and just like drift off to sleep into this happy slumber.
Yeah, it's kind of that was Bethesda's effect on the series as a whole. Um, because the first two games were that like what you'd usually expect, really dark, gritty, and very like shocking themes and stuff, in especially in comparison to Fallout 3, 4 and stuff like that, where it's a lot more lighthearted, there's a lot more comedy sprinkled in, and it's just more it's more bright as well as like a setting in comparison to the early games. So it definitely feels like from what you've explained, it feels very Fallout 4-ish in its setting and tone. So
Yeah.
for those who enjoyed that game, probably would enjoy the TV show.
It was a total surprise for me. It really was a total surprise for me. And I would honestly say I'm always a prisoner of the moment with this shit, and I say things that I look back at a year later, 2 years later. I'm like, why did I say that? But right now, I do think I would say this is my favorite live action adaptation. But you know, that's the thing, is it's not really an adaptation of anything. It's just a concept. It's just taking bits of lore and world ideas. It's not really like, it's not, because The Last of Us is a adaptation,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
almost one-to-one retelling, just in TV show form. Yeah, because it's what I'm not, from what I've seen, the people who are very, very into the lore are full on. They've done some, you know, corner cutting and stuff like that. So I don't think it can be a one to it. It's just artistic freedom. They've been given like the world and they're just doing what they, what they would like to see from it, which isn't always bad. Because like you said, you're really enjoying it. You probably enjoyed it more than the games.
Oh, I mean, not even close.
And that's what it feels like it's targeting the audience of. It's not targeting the audience of the games. They want to win on new people and then push them into the games because then they
Yeah.
won't have that, you know, the pre, expectations of these are how the games are. That's how the TV show should be. It's a lot easier to give somebody a TV show and then give them a much wider range of an interactivity of a game because then they can be like, oh, I love this even more. It's a lot more easier to win them over in that way than the other way.
Well, yeah, and it's also like they respect the game series. So it's the fact that they, you know, are doing their own thing while also respectfully acknowledging the source material throughout the entire. I mean, there's so many like references and little gags, and you know, you have your obvious ones, but it it's doing a great job of not being overly referential. Like it's its own thing, but it also pays total respect to the OG. Like even at the beginning of every episode, it says from the hit game series Fallout or from Bethesda Games. Like it always is respectful, and that's the thing. Like as a Resident Evil fan, I feel like I've never gotten a respectful retelling of,
You
and
didn't like Return to Raccoon City or whatever that film is called.
that's the best one in terms of like
Oh,
respecting.
it's so bad. It's
It's
so bad.
it's not good. It's very low
No.
budget, and like you can see all the strings being pulled behind the scenes, but like you that is the best, most respectful retelling of the story. And uh, like I like Resident Evil 1 with Mila Jokovic, and I like some of those Mila Jokovic movies, but and of course the animated that shit rules. But in terms of a live action retelling or a live
Yeah.
action adaptation in any respect, it doesn't feel like anybody who's taken a swing at Resident Evil even cares about the series, other than Welcome to Raccoon City, which unfortunately just didn't have the budget to really do anything special with. But it seems like we're in a kind of a golden age where, you know, The Last of Us and Mario and Sonic and this and like it seems like The Witcher, which, you know, it's not necessarily it's more pulling from the book, but it feels like at least early Witcher, not it seems that things have
Yeah.
totally deviated there, but it seems we're in a really good period for these showrunners, writers really respecting the thing that they're trying to adapt, even if they're not trying to make a full one-to-one adaptation.
I think it's heavily because they are now second place. Before, if you tried to take a crack at a live action movie adapted from a game, say in like 2005, movies and TV shows were top dogs.
Yeah.
The video game industry has dwarfed them now. Like it's completely flipped on its head. So now, like, and it's a very weird shifting change because you're seeing some of these things landing and others are still kind of dragging their heels and trying to do like these 2005-esque, you know, adaptations of stuff. So I think it's just gonna get better from here on out. I think we're gonna get more and more people with more and more people getting exposed to games and stuff like that. You're gonna have more people who will respect it and stuff like that. And yeah, newer directors will come in and be like, "Hey, I want to do this." So
It, and it's like, dude, I really think, and once again, I'm a prisoner of the moment. I acknowledge that immediately. I think this is my favorite. I think I like this more than The Last of Us. which is crazy because, but that's the thing, the freedom where I knew what was going to happen with The Last of Us. It's, one of my favorite games ever. But
Yeah.
like, I never knew what, because that's the thing, we
You can't
talk about,
deviate with The Last of Us either. Because it's such a strong story, they couldn't just do something completely. They had to almost follow it beat to beat because it would have angered so many people. Whereas with
yeah,
Fallout, yeah, you have that, that the quest, the main overarching thing, but it's more just a sandbox. You're just exploring these random things. And you're just getting these random moments, interactions and stuff, and it's just full of experiences. The
yeah,
main quest kind of falls to the wayside as well.
totally. And I mean, they have episode 3 with The Last of Us that is very different. And I enjoyed that episode. It was incredible. But like, it the main story is the main story, and like you said, you can't veer too far away from that because it's so goddamn good. I This made me believe, because I you often hear, Grand Theft Auto live action TV show, Grand Theft Auto live action movie, and I've always been like, nah, it's not gonna work. But seeing this actually made me go, wait, I think that can work, because if
Yeah.
it's not adapting directly if they're not trying to retell GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas 4, like if they're just pulling from a world, so
Yeah,
you're talking about just a mob kind of
exactly.
sandbox, like,
Yeah.
dude, absolutely that could work, and then just you go to Vice City, or you go to LA, or wherever the case may be. Like, yeah, actually, this made me a believer in maybe because Grand Theft Auto might be the closest comparison, I would say, in terms of very, very zany, over the top sandbox that is really all about just getting lost in a world. It's not really
Yeah.
about the main path.
No. Man, that's crazy if they ever did that. Because you're talking, it's already like nobody wants to touch the game like within like you don't want to release your game even within like a 3 month window before or after that. That's scary. So if they entered the live action space and they slew that, my God.
Ooh. And obviously you would have to get a prominent, like, big name. Yeah, I doubt Scorsese would ever do it, but like you would have to get a name on that level. Someone like, dude, I mean, I know this is crazy, but what if that was like Quentin Tarantino's project? Because he talked about wanting to get out of,
Hell yeah.
dude, right?
Absolutely.
Wanting to
That
get,
they yeah, that would be amazing.
yeah, because they talk, he's talked about, this is his last film, but he's talked about maybe wanting to work in television. So, did throw him on just like, tell him you can do whatever the fuck you want. Here's your world to go and do it inside of. Like, which maybe once again you're talking about kind of coming back to the early 2000s era of people who don't really respect the source material. I doubt Quentin Tarantino gives a shit about Grand Theft Auto, but I honestly don't know. Like, he's kind of
He may not give a shit about it, but a lot of the things he's done, you you could argue that they could have been spun into something that could have been tied to a GTA thing.
Pulp Fiction is GTA. Like, that
Yeah,
is Vice City. That's Vice City written all over it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And he's also not a shy director as well. He will push it to the limit. So yeah, no, that'd be amazing.
yeah, and that's the thing. You have to have that style of humor, and it's always like, I heard a comedian. I think I've probably already told you this before. It's my favorite reference ever, though, in terms of like trying to understand the type of comedy for certain types of people. It's this comedian named Louis J. Gomez. He said, and his parents got killed at an early age. His dad was murdered, and well, his mom committed suicide. So really, young kid with a fucked up backstory, and now he's like one of the most offensive comedians on the planet. And it's like, no shit.
Mm,
What do you think allowed this dude to cope? Like, people who have had fucked up family lineage, fucked up traumatic past, whatever, they're not gonna laugh at soccer mom humor. And like, for a GTA, for a Fallout, like, nailing the tone, nailing the humor, for it being something more than Republican dad humor. Like, you got to kind of go past that. And I think Fallout definitely executed on that, and I think that they also. I think that. Well, here's the thing. My biggest complaint is that the actual like dramatic moments. There's a few that are really, really strong, but I wasn't as interested in like the main because they really explore and it feels like they're side questing and shit a lot of the time, and they even make reference to it. It's like something about you. One thing you need to know about the wasteland is you're gonna get sidetracked doing some dumb shit. Like there's some they even make direct reference that yeah we're gonna get lost doing a bunch of nothing, and that's something that makes it feel so cozy. But within that, I wasn't like totally invested in what was going on in the main narrative until the end, but they do something really cool where there'll often be shots where it kind of throws back to the game and puts you in the shoes of like Lucy or whoever. And there will be multiple characters trying to plead to you and make their case of why you should save them or whatever. And they'll both be in the same shot. And so it kind of makes it brings you back to Fallout where they're both trying to plead you. They're in the same shot and you're looking at both of them as they're making their case. And then you have to choose who lives, who dies, who you save, who you let like all of these things. And it makes you feel like you're making a decision in a Fallout game. It's kind of crazy how they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, because you need to just, like you said, you need to have an understanding of how the game functions and also just have that like sense of humor. Because like now that jogged my memory, did you see the live action Dungeons and Dragons
I didn't. I
movie?
heard it was great
Like
though.
Michelle, it was amazing. Like it's just because they knew what it was that they needed to achieve, and it was just stupidity. It was for like these people were just bumbling through this adventure, and because they go to this graveyard, it's in one of the trailers, and one of the spells is speak the dead. You only have three questions, like you can ask this thing, and they waste like all of them, and it's so amazing because they're bickering with one another, and he answers one of the things that they actually asked the other person. He's like, "No, I didn't ask you, did I?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "No," and then he just collapses because that was just him answering the last thing. It was just like, oh, I just love this. This is
That
it.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing here is like, in Fallout, you'll often make decisions based off the limited information you have, and then you'll be like 30 minutes later, fuck, I made the wrong decision because I got new information. And they do a great job of frustrating you based off of decisions that you'll see happen in the moment. And then because a lot of these, uh no spoilers. I'll just say that there will be a character that'll learn something, but the other character will be somewhere else and they won't have that information. And then they'll
Yeah.
do something stupid, and the other character's like, no, 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 we had wrong information. Like it's fucking awesome, man. I really, really, really enjoyed this, and I'm glad it's a smash hit. It deserves it. It's really, really good. I think this is going to be one of the most like bingeable, rewatchable shows in recent memory. Like I could see myself coming back to this multiple times as just like a good, I want to end the day, de-stress, not think about anything. Because that's the openness of it makes it to where you can just kind of like, cool, you just do what you do, and I'm gonna very passively enjoy this.
No, that's amazing. I think Todd's going to be kicking himself for not greenlighting this earlier.
Could you do it with Elder Scrolls? You can't
No, I mean with
really.
Fallout, like Fallout is
No, I know. I'm saying, could
has
you
been
go?
that's what they interviewed him. They were like, what about an Elder Scrolls like live action? And he was like, no. He's been approached multiple times on it, and he's like, no. And I think it's because it would have to fall into that realm of like Lord of the Rings budget. Look how
Right.
much it cost to make Rings of Power. You're talking like over like a billion,
Yeah.
I think is what they got. Like it was like 100 and something million per episode of budget per
Oh,
episode, and it was really badly received on top of that. So yeah, even with like Microsoft's backing, I don't think you would have to build a juggernaut with like 3, 4 seasons of Fallout and knocking it out of the park, building on it each, like becoming like the sensation of like a Walking Dead, Breaking Bad, Sopranos level of success before they
dude.
would even flirt with touching the Elder Scrolls.
I tell you this, and this is all anecdotal, obviously, but I was watching the UFC fights this weekend with some buddies, and I think there was like maybe 8 people that we all had together, and there was a couple that were both watching it. So 3 out of 8 people, no, 4 out of 8 people, because I was watching it as well. Half of the people there were watching Fallout.
Mm,
So like, and these people, I don't think any but one person had ever played a Fallout game. So like, it's really breaking through. I once again anecdotal, but it seems like it's breaking through to a casual market in a similar way that The
mm,
Last of Us did. And
yep.
you can't necessarily do that with like a Mario, which Mario was humongous, but it's just Mario's the biggest video game character of all time. Like everybody has some nostalgia with Mario. But like a casual sort of adult audience who just wants to watch a TV show, like a Breaking Bad, like a Soprano, like that kind of Fallout, it's not saying to that level, but seems to be kind of landing in that Last of Us zone. So I hope it really
Be
does.
interesting, yeah, to see how high the ceiling goes for it. Because I'd absolutely welcome like an Elder Scrolls, like Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
Outer Wilds would be
The
fucking dope.
the more the merrier. Yeah, Outer
Yeah,
Worlds would be a very good one.
yeah, definitely. Um, this kind of has me think like this show just sort of flipped my whole perception of what could work in the live action space on its head. Like I always thought Mass Effect couldn't work because it was all based on the decisions you were making, but so is Fallout. And like I don't know, I'm kind of open to like exploring the shit out of this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's because I know some people were disappointed that these are all like original characters. That's the way you have to get it to work for these like
Yes.
RPGs and stuff. It's not like a Last of Us where you can fixate on these characters where everything is so heavily story driven. If you did a Mass Effect, it would have to be exploring like the first contact wars and stuff like that. Like flesh out the before, like when human like that would be an amazing thing. I don't know how much you know about it. Like humanity stumbling upon what were they called? The Garrus's race.
Oh, the
And they just headbutted each other again and again and again because they had no way of communicating. So they were just firing nukes at each other from the
yeah.
very beginning. And the council had to step in and they were like, okay, you guys need to like knock this off. You need to
Yeah.
stop. And that's how they gained their spot on the council. Humanity. That's how they leapfrogged all of these other races because they went toe to toe with that species. But
I
again, I'm drawing a blank on, and it's annoying me.
I can't think of it off the top of my head either. I know
What the hell is Garrus?
uh Garrus Volcarion. What is the fucking
I keep
Garrus
thinking Targaryen, but that's the house in Game of Thrones. It's not that. What on earth?
species? Let's look it up. Let's see. Garrus is a Turian.
Tyrion. Yes, it was a
Turian.
T. I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
no, yeah,
that was an amazing because that's why Anderson like gets so like gut punched all the time. Is
yeah,
because he was like a big figure in that war. He went like he hand to hand combated some of them fools. Like he was a brutal man and stuff like
yeah.
that. And it's yeah, that would be an amazing like setup
Yeah. That
for a
seems
TV
to
show.
to kind of be the route is to just go, go that route, go more blank canvas and let the world be the driving factor, but let this, let new writers, directors come in and kind of as long as they respect, understand, know the lore, let them come in and kind of tinker with it and create their own thing. Like I
Mm,
love that approach, especially for Mass Effect maybe doesn't work as much in that approach, like it's just a total blank canvas as like a GTA and Fallout. I really think those two make a ton of damn sense. It's just like because it's all about the sandbox. It's all about the open-ended experience. Um, but yeah, man.
Assassin's Creed. Why has that not been like we had that movie and it felt like okay, you're putting like the first grain of sugar to like show what an animus is. You have any point of history you could pull from, for
Yeah.
Christ's sake. Like, how have you not capitalized on this?
Just yeah, just totally escape all the anime shit and just go like straight up, feudal Japan story with a bunch of
Exactly. And
like
you could just do that. And
yeah.
because they already put an obscene amount of effort into researching all this history.
Yeah.
Because with these newer games, they've put out side projects that go into schools, the discovery mode things. They've been putting them into school. Like, there's so much untapped potential there that they could be tapping into.
Well, another thing that I really like about this approach to just kind of blank canvas storytelling is it kind of makes it feel like a new IP because like I said, these
Hmm.
people who I was watching the fight with, like they don't give a shit about the Fallout games. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like it's a new IP essentially to them. The Last of Us was a new IP essentially to most people. Like they don't, a lot of people will never play these video games.
Yep.
So like if you have a total, which I know Last of Us wasn't a blank canvas, but if it really works, I guess it works in any regard as long as it's good and it hits and catches. Like it just make it good and it'll work. And yeah, I'll wrap it up there. Fallout
Yeah.
is not
Moral of the
good.
story: make it good.
Yeah. And Fallout's not good. That shit is fucking great. I loved that. But that was a long ass ramble about what we have been playing and a good ass hour long ramble about what we have been watching with Fallout there. Um I'm really excited for you to dive into it when you do. I think you'll enjoy it, man. But you want to dive into the news. We got a big ass news week, so it's gonna be a chunky episode. I apologize, my people, but we got a lot of news to go over. And Loon, I think the most pressing, most important, the biggest item on this list, we alluded to it earlier. Star Wars Outlaws got a story trailer, and at the end of that story trailer, we got a release date for August 30th, 2024. Gotta out the gate, gotta give that Jor Raptor, gotta give him some flowers,
Yep.
man. That was a damn
Hmm.
good call on his part. Damn good
Oh,
call.
yeah. I wasn't joking. He's probably, other than like obviously official sources when they work with like Ubisoft, always invite him to their studios and stuff, and they give him exclusive like act like he'll be getting the game like a month before
Yeah.
to be building up content because he's such a Ubisoft hype boy. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you like the games, power to you, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm all for it. So yeah, a really good. I would prediction. I don't even think it's they probably told him it just to generate a little bit of hype. To be
I
honest.
I will say though, his like reasoning, his sort of how he deduced that information and was like this the from Rainbow Six to Avatar to it was
Mm,
like all the dots were connected, like it made a lot of sense. And but yeah, I once again hats off because I was not expecting that game to launch in 2024 and I was
neither was
dead.
I.
Yeah. And then now we might be getting that Codename Red game as well in 2024. If that's a big enough window, I could see it slip into 2025, but I don't think they put August 30th on that for no reason. They're given
Yeah,
September, October, November, and December. That there's some reason that they have that open.
yeah. My only worry with that is when Ubisoft launch like two chunky RPGs, one always get cannibalized.
Yep.
Like,
Legion and Valhalla in 2020.
yeah, like nobody was gonna be touching Watch Dogs Legion over Valhalla. It has so much more hype behind it. So yeah, I mean, but this is the worry. If you're saying that GTA 6 is coming out next year,
Everything out the
I'm
door.
sorry, Ubisoft. There's nothing that you could drop that would even compare to that.
Yeah.
So do you just have to push both of these games out this year? Because I don't know about you, but like I was a little bit shaky on Outlaws, but like the more I've seen about it, as long as they can get the thing for me is if they can nail the traversal and not make it feel like a slog. If these are going to be like big enough worlds and stuff like that, because it's one of like the reasons is I couldn't get into like Starfield and stuff. The A to B is so boring. Like it's there's no other word for it. It's just boring.
Yep,
It's not
it is.
engaging. There's no excitement going on. But this like you're obviously not gonna get it down to the T of like Jedi Survivor because it's a lot more compact and it seems a lot more structured. But if you can even just get 40% of that, it will dwarf my enjoyment of Starfield
Yeah. Oh,
personally.
so Game Informer they got a they were able to go hands-on with the game. It's a part of their cover story, and I'll have links to, all the sources that we're pulling from here in the description. But I would recommend going over and reading that. I think it's still free, the digital ver I bought the subscription to get the physical magazine, and I don't know if maybe that's why I got free access to the digital. I don't know, but it's a great read up of really what this game is going to be. And I think the main thing I pulled from it, or one of the main things, is touching exactly on what you were worried about there. Is they specifically said that the speeder bike that you use is like really goddamn fun to traverse with and to get around the open world. And then they also said in an interview with the game's director, I believe, that they are going with fewer planets, but much more like real content in each planet that you're going to be roaming around, uh,
All for that.
and also that you have like pretty seamless transitions from, as your ship is taking off and stuff. They have like a slight loading screen as you're breaking into orbit, and then when you get into orbit, you can, I believe, kind of roam freely. And then once when you're flying to a planet before you land, it'll do like a quick cutscene to lead you into landing. So it's not like total, No Man's Sky, but it seems to be a step above Starfield in terms of just the agency of actually being able to control your ship in space. Which
Yeah.
you could get into space battles and stuff in Starfield, and some of that was kind of cool, but it seems that this is going to be a little bit more allowing you for a little bit more freedom in this. So I'm damn excited about that. Have you seen the controversy surrounding the game? With
The RM stuff.
That's my big one. That's really the only one for me personally that just pisses me off. It doesn't make any sense. It's a single player game. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is required internet. You have to be online as you're installing the game, which is it makes beyond no sense for a single player game. But then I would say the bigger controversy that most people are stirring up that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, if I'm being totally honest, is that there is a $120 version which gets you 3 day, or I think it's $110. It might be 120, 110 that gets you 3 days early access.
It's, it's 120 here, so it'll be more over in America, it'll be 130. They've done this with every release, guys.
Exactly.
Like this is it this is the same thing of what annoyed me about Dragon's Dogma getting shit on. You're you're just deciding to point fingers because at the moment there's nothing to get mad about.
Yes.
So you're just being like, okay, because if you had that stance, these editions wouldn't exist because you all would have banded together and stomped them out when they first tried this crap. But you didn't. You accepted it, and this is it. Like the uh, what was it? The break was it Breakout? Breakpoint, I think was
Oh
the name
yeah.
of it. Tom
Ghost
Clancy's
Recon.
Breakpoint that did that. Wildlands did it. Far Cry games have done it.
Yep.
Assassin's Creed absolutely has done that.
Yeah.
Especially these past three installations, they've been egregious with how much they charge. So like this is just Ubisoft pricing. Even Avatar's pricing was absurd.
Yeah. Well, and like for me, I, I hate that. So they have a specific mission with Jabba that is going to be locked behind that $100+ version. And that sucks.
Mhm.
But like I'm not saying it's 100% the same, but Hogwarts kind of had a similar thing. Whereas like the
Xbox are
PlayStation,
only Xbox are only just getting that mission this year,
yeah.
and we were told to just shut up. The amount of people I saw throwing shade at Xbox players just like shut up, and it's
Well,
just like okay, double standards much.
and Hogwarts also had the same thing where you paid $100+ to get a couple days early access.
Yep.
And it's like you can't be so selective with your outrage, man. I get that Ubisoft is, and that is true. Ubisoft, it seems Ubisoft, the corporation, and Ubisoft, the creatives working for the corporation, are constantly at odds with one another. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I don't think the people working over at Massive want to make a damn Job of the Hutt mission exclusive to the 110, 120,
No,
whatever.
no, nobody who creates content wants to have that be exclusive. And
No.
they've done these interviews time and time again because why would you want all your hard work and your effort only being seen by a small portion? Because there's going to be people who are even going to buy that edition and then not even do the mission.
That might be me. Like, I'm really, Loon, here's the thing, and then I want to actually talk about the game in a second because like I'm so tired of the culture wars. I'm so tired of just the nonsense that's spewed online about everything. Everything is a fucking controversy. Nothing cannot be a goddamn controversy if it's like a big, anything that is anticipated and discussed and talked about, like it has to become this huge controversy. But I, so with Hogwarts Legacy, I was playing the game. I'm like 15, 20 hours in. I'm scrolling through Twitter one day, and because of the damn culture wars going on, eh, I'm just scrolling through Twitter and I see somebody just spoil the game because they were trying to ruin it for
Mm,
everybody who bought it to support J.K. Whatever dumb shit. And it's like I feel like the opposite crowd is possibly going to do the same thing here with Star Wars
yeah,
Outlaws
no,
because
absolutely.
yeah, because now the big controversy, and it's not a big controversy. This is terminally online people, but the big controversy within that crowd, and that's the crowd that spoils all this shit and ruins it for normal people. That's the crowd now that's saying, "Oh, it's woke because it's a female character and she's not, she doesn't look like Bayonetta." And it's like, and so they're outraged about this, and then
I
all,
hadn't seen that, but it doesn't surprise me. It
but
really
my
doesn't.
And Loon, I'm dead ass serious. Like, I really worry about waiting for the game and just scrolling through Twitter, looking at like a normal day, just doing a quick doom scroll, and then I stumble upon the fucking ending of the game because like this is I've told this. This is
Yep.
probably my most anticipated game for the rest of the year. And so like I do not want this shit spoiled, but I also don't want to reward a company for a fucking $100 version of the game. Because with Hogwarts Legacy, I didn't really care. You know what I mean? But like we saw with Last of Us 2, I sure as shit wish I could have got a $100 version of that so I didn't have to have all that shit spoiled for me.
Yeah, no, exactly. Um, and this is where it is the corporate thing. They know that they have that power over people. They know that because you think in the grander scheme, 4 days is nothing. But
No.
in gaming space, it travels at the speed of like it's the moment that somebody experiences that, they can post that online, that will then get posted, and then it just balls out of control, and then everything's spoiled for everybody who didn't fork that extra obscene amount of money. You're talking like, almost half the cost of a game that they want so that you can run the least amount of risk to having stuff spoiled for you.
Yeah, dude. It's a bummer,
So
man. It really is a bummer, but I don't know. I think that the story trailer, it was a little bit quippy. It was a little bit like,
that's just modern Star Wars, to be fair. That's just Disney
totally.
writing in general, Marvel. That's just the way things have gone.
Yeah. But I do want to we'll transition off of the controversial bullshit because really at the end of the day, like who the fuck cares? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do really care about not wanting this spoiled. Like I really, really, really don't want this spoiled. So it's a bummer that I even have to consider forking over an extra 40. I
It,
guess I could just avoid, but for this show and shit, like I use Twitter
I
to
can,
compile all the
it
news.
will get spoiled because
Absolutely it will.
I've seen this with especially it's a Ubisoft game. like Valhalla's big twists, which was the whole point of playing through the slog of that damn game was spoiled. Like it has a couple of like rewarding stuff, and it gets spoiled because of the people who get 4 days early just like to stick a middle finger up at those who opted to just wait.
Yeah. And you know,
So
anytime
yeah,
there's like a culture war attached to it, and there's some angle there, people have like this crazy vendetta, like the lunatics who spoiled Hogwarts Legacy for everybody, the lunatics who spoiled The Last of Us for everybody. Like these same lunatics, even though they're different sides, they're the same fucking lunatic. They're the
yep.
same exact lunatic, and they're gonna spoil this game because they have some axe to grind about fucking whatever. And I'm not even like, I don't honestly don't care about your political preference, but like let people enjoy their damn media. Why are you gonna spoil it? Like you can be angry and not support it. I'm fine. I support you not supporting whatever the hell you want to not support.
But then
But
they don't feed off the energy of others. That's why
right.
Reddit is so hated as a
Yeah.
platform. Is because it's just a cesspit of just crap of where someone spews something on it and then someone else and it's just yeah, people just live to thrive on, like you said, the console wars as it was, which I've never personally understood.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. So like I said, I subscribed to the Game Informer magazine, and they had a good in-depth breakdown of what this game is going to be when because they got a hands-on uh, preview. It's not a preview, but they went hands-on with the game. So I wrote down a bunch of points. I listened to the full podcast where they discussed their impressions of the game. I listened to the full interview they did with the director, I believe, and I read the full article of their hands-on, coverage of the game.
Did
So
your homework.
yeah, I mean, like I said, this is my most anticipated. Like I was just zoned in. So I want
Yep.
to bring up some of the key points that stood out to me, and I just want to throw these to you and see kind of what you're feeling about some of this. Um, they said here that every combat encounter is designed around stealth and like a guns blazing approach. So it's letting the player decide in every encounter what is the best plane of action, which I honestly do think Ubisoft has kind of been overlooked for this. Like I think that even though they don't make immersive sim games, I think most of their games have immersive sim elements in them.
And the approach of combat, especially these new Assassin's Creed games, yeah. You can
Yeah.
go full stealth or full, as you said, quote unquote, guns blazing.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of started that with Far Cry 3, and then I would say a lot of the
Mm,
Watch Dogs games have that with the hacking systems and stuff, which it's not like I said, it's not Deus Ex, it's not Dishonored, but it's somewhere in like a diet version of that. So I don't really doubt that they're going to be able to pull that off. They also talked about with the Syndicate, the factions, that there's 4 different factions, and you're going to be doing jobs for all of them, and there's a reputation system. And
mm,
so you are going to need to make decisions based off of who you want to align more with. And if you make decisions that align you more with the Hut Syndicate, then the other 3 syndicates might bar you access from entering their facilities. They might not give you good deals when you're shopping and or when you're in their districts and shit, when you're trying to buy weapons. Um, but they also said when you're doing a mission for the Hut and you're going against the I think the Pike is another one. Like I'm like I said, I'm not a huge Star Wars guy. That's kind of the crazy thing is like I've watched all the movies and shit, but I'm not a huge Star Wars lore guy. I just love damn Star Wars video games. I think they're fun as shit. But say you're going and doing a mission for the Hut and you're trying to steal something from the Pike Syndicate and you go in, but you go in stealthily, your reputation won't decrease because you didn't get caught. If you get caught and you end up going guns blazing and they see your face, your reputation will decrease. But I think that's sick as shit. You
yeah.
can have a really high reputation with a team with a syndicate with a faction, and they might have their guards down because they trust you, but you want to go and raise your reputation with another syndicate. They're really not like on the lookout for you. So you can kind of just like walk your way through shit and when you need to be stealthy, grab something. And like that's a cool ass idea in my opinion.
Yep. Especially if they can execute it well. Um, I'm hoping that the system will be more than just the surface level as well, because they
Yes.
have kind of flirted. with these systems before. In Odyssey, you had
Odyssey.
Sparta versus Athens, and that was like a massive thing that they showed in the trailers and stuff, and then all it was red
Battle.
versus blue, and it was the same thing every single time. And even in Odyssey again, you had the diet nemesis system
Yep.
as well, which you know could have been a little bit better. I think it's because Warner Brothers still had like an iron grip on that. I think they patented it, so they really had to just like make it as basic as possible.
Well, it's funny you
But if
bring
they
that up.
can do that, that'd be really cool. Go on, sorry.
No, you're good. It's funny you bring that up because they actually referenced something that made me think right back to Odyssey, and the sort of nemesis system there. They say you have like a wanted level in
Mm,
Outlaws, similar to GTA, and if you increase it to the max limit, they'll send assassins out for you. And I was like, oh, well, that could be really fucking cool. But then I was like, oh, well, could that be very similar to the Nemesis, the quote unquote Nemesis system that they threw in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I know it's not exactly the same, but it is kind of like that. What was it? Once you get to a certain level, they send like that level of a boss to come
Yeah,
and
it
yeah.
grew and grew, and sometimes you could also just while you're exploring, they just bumped into you.
Right. Yeah, that was actually
Did that.
kind of sick.
So yeah, you had that. But that's what I mean. And that's the thing that it's my love and hate relationship with Ubisoft. They have these cool ideas, but they never get past the foundation phase a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They just get that foundation down there. Oh, we're happy. We're nice and comfortable here. This is we don't need to risk anymore. And it's just like for fuck's sake, Ubisoft, just take that extra step. What is wrong with you? Like just yeah, just
Yeah.
take the extra step. So hopefully they try a little harder.
Yeah. So I'll try to rapid fire run through some of these. They talked about how when you're in gunfights and you're getting gunned down by an enemy, like, and they have some badass weapon, after you kill them, you can just run over and scoop up the weapon immediately. So, like, it sounds like a nice, intuitive sort of gear and loot system where it's uh, immediate response. You see something, you want it, you go get it, you can use it. And I think that they talked about like not having too much pending loot and pending gear, like just sitting in your inventory. I think it's more like responsive in the moment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully leveled gear is unshackled. But it's funny that you say that because I'd shit on Bethesda a lot, but that's something that they've done since like 2007. If a guy had a gun, you kill that person, you get that gun. Like it's kind of crazy that this is also what Ubisoft does, is where they think that they've come up with something groundbreaking and extraordinary.
well, I don't think that they necessarily even believe that. I'm just because that's not what they usually do. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
they it is. I do not like the idea of, and you see it in games all the time. You kill someone, they have something cool, and you can't
yeah,
take it. It's like it breaks immersion totally, and I because but it's all in favor of trying to RPGify the leveling system where it's like, oh, that's too good for you to have. It's like I killed the
yeah.
motherfucker and he has it. I'm taking it. And so like I think all games should have shit like that.
Yep,
Um yeah,
right there
so,
with you.
yeah, I like that the immediacy that seems to be on offer here. It's on Ubisoft like. Let's see. We talked about the wanted system. We talked about you can like betray the syndicate, and if you get caught, your reputation will go down. And supposedly you can also bribe off like corporate imperial officers, but if your wanted level gets maxed out, we talked about with they'll send out the assassins to try to kill you in some, I assume, mini game sort of scenario. But cool that you can like be bribing motherfuckers and shit. I always love that. I'm gonna read this next bit verbatim because it's probably the most compelling bit of information we got on the game in general, in my opinion.
Hmm.
It says, as K Players take on jobs from various crime syndicates as they navigate the underworld of Star Wars galaxy during this precarious period. However, things are never so black and white when dealing with the Hutt cartel, the Pike Syndicate, and other established syndicates across various planets. Kay needs to make difficult decisions about how she approaches each job. That gets to the heart of what Massive Entertainment calls the ultimate scoundrel fantasy. Massive wanted the notion that actions have consequences and your reputation does follow you wherever you go to permeate the entire experience, giving birth to a robust reputation system that feeds into nearly every part of Star Wars Outlaws. So, and we touched on that, but like for that to be their core foundation that they're building on is the choices that you're making. I am with you. I'm in the kind of believe it when I see it approach, but for them to really be honing in on that as like a key part of the game, it does make me think it'll be a little bit more impactful than something like Odyssey.
Yeah. And also the fact that it's like an outlaw story gives them a lot more breathing room instead of it focusing on a Jedi where, Jedis have to adhere to a code and stuff like that. Cal couldn't just go around being a dirty scumbag in
Totally.
Jedi Survivor and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it gives them a lot more breathing room with creativity.
And the potential of like having long-term ramifications for your actions, I just think that is so sick. I loved it so much in Red Dead Redemption 2, where you do some shady shit in this town and then you come back to the town later and they still remember the shady shit that you did there. Like I love how systems like that can kind of stack and NPCs can remember the actions that you or whatever fucked up shit you did or good shit you did that'll all have consequence. I love that. I'm once again very much in the I'll believe it when I see it camp, but I love the
Hmm.
idea.
Absolutely.
And they talked about building dense worlds with a lot to do and not just like open vast plains of nothingness. Brian Shea, the guy who played it, he was discussing how he was like running around and seeing arcade games and betting arenas and card games and like these kind of high-rise vertical locations opposed to just empty vast plains. So I love that. I'm very, very tired of just running around open worlds with absolutely nothing in them. So I'm all for an outer world scaled multiple open world, like multiple open zone approach to their worlds, which I think they'll be bigger than that. But yeah, I was very happy to hear that.
Do we know if there's like a jetpack system
The
for
speeder
traversal?
the speeder motorcycle is the main thing you use to get around, but that would be
Okay.
fucking
Exact, because it's like an
sick.
outlaw thing. The biggest outlaw in Star Wars is Boba Fett.
And
Give,
they did talk about you have like a grapple gun. They can get you can like
yeah, okay.
go you can get up like 1, 2 stories. So I doubt they're gonna have a jet. Dude, that would be
That would have been
nasty.
the cherry on top, Ubisoft, man. Come on.
Especially with like vertically like
Yeah.
these vertically kind of prioritized locations where you can get to the top like super quick. Because Outcast, I'm going to be
Mhm.
shouting out Outcast a lot this year. I think I love that damn game for all its quirks. That was the coolest part about Outcast, and you never had to take your jetpack off. So like when you got in, because a lot of the time you'll get into like the city parts of a world or kind of the safe zones, you won't be able to sprint or whatever. Like they'll do something to, because oftentimes frame rates and shit just drop off a cliff when you get into these densely packed areas, which it did in Outcast as well. But they're like, fuck it, just go as fast as you can and drop down to 2 frames per second. But I loved it. I was like, this is so stupid. I love it.
Dude, it's Elix as well. Come on, like these smaller studios are showing you up in this department. How have your quadruple A budgets and stuff like that? Even if you
Totally.
just did what they did, like I get it, like a grapple gun and everything, it makes it feel like it's got more polish because you have to lock them into an animation. I mean, put a poll out there even. What would you prefer? I know what I would prefer. I'd prefer Elix's jetpack over Syndicate's rope thing. I don't know
Yeah,
if you ever played Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but that
I
was one of
haven't.
the main things that it got complaint over is that a lot of the traversal just felt stiff because it was just a one button push and it would just zip you from the ground all the way up to the top of the building. And
Yeah.
it lost a lot of that meaning and the the thrill that you get from parkouring and stuff like that. So if you're already going to cut that out, you may as well just opt for a jetpack.
Totally. I'm with you. I'm all for dropping some frame rates, and
Mm,
if it leads to more fun,
exactly.
I'm always for more fun. But that's pretty much all of the information that I had about um that I had about the game that I pulled from Game Informer. I believe it's in between Empire and Jedi, so
Yep.
it's kind of
Because
like that.
it shows one of the characters was Dengar, was his name. The guy with
Mm,
like the turban head thing. He's one of the bounty hunters that they end up hiring to hunt down Han Solo in the it's not pretty the sequels, whatever the original three
right,
movies.
right, right, right.
Whatever however George
Yeah, I
Lucas,
get
man,
you.
you need to sort yourself out.
I get you.
Freaking making 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. What the hell's wrong?
Um, but yeah, man, I'm from this. Like they came away pretty hot off of it. I obviously know that they are getting early access to the game, so they're inclined to say positive things about it. But I'm kind of hype. I'm kind of hype, and I was already really hyped, so I'm not gonna sit here and act like uh, I'm in a hot spot with the Star Wars game. Jedi Survivor, my game of the year last year. I hope we get a duplicate.
Well, they've been handed these games. They're in a built enough state, therefore it's not going to get delayed. They also didn't complain about performance issues from what I saw, which is
Yeah.
like a massive win. Like because Valhalla come out and it was very shaky at launch.
Yes.
So if it's just going to be stable, bring it on. It just gives me more excitement for this and more of a inside my head rationalizing maybe if it's not getting any of these like woes that the other things are, maybe I will buy that bigger edition.
Yeah.
It's an easier pill to swallow.
Well, Massive seems to be kind of like the premier studio over there now. I mean, I know for a while it's like Quebec and Montreal, but like Massive kind of seems to be the big dogs with Avatar.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay, but a lot of people really loved Avatar. People really loved The Division. Like the live service crowd was, they were
So
really
very
hot.
the both of them games are really good. Played tons of hours. It's because we just constantly veer off the tracks here. But the other strong Ubisoft teams lost a lot of their like big heads to controversy and stuff.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
people who were very important at doing their jobs kind of lost their jobs, and rightfully so. But that also impacts their ability to function. Is when you don't have somebody strong at the head who's good at their job, they kind of
Yeah.
they wobble a bit.
Well, and it's interesting because The Division, like I heard that the third person shooting was excellent. And so if that pedigree is transferred over
Yeah.
to Outlaws, like and think about them being able to really focus in on a third person shooter without having to add a lot of filler to it, because that's something else they brought up where it's like we're not going to have towers that you're clearing out, and like it's seeming like they're going to try to make this a solid 25 to 40 hour game opposed to a 50 to 200 hour game. So if they can just,
I would be shocked though, because Ubisoft really just are fixated on hitting 100 hours with their RPGs.
but that's the thing with Avatar, it wasn't that. Avatar,
Was
you
it
can,
not?
nah, I beat
Okay.
Avatar in like 30 hours. But
Okay.
yeah, man.
A
So
reserve judgment.
for sure. Yeah, it's same. And I'm not sitting here saying that it's going to be, the next best thing and the second coming
No,
of
I'm
Christ, but
excited for it as well because it's one of my most top five of this year. Absolutely.
for sure. But we got a big ass show ahead. So let's go ahead and, I guess, speaking of Ubisoft games, Prince of Persia Sands of Time is being remade. And this is coming to us from Insider Gaming. And they reported that Ubisoft Mumbai was pulled off the project and Montreal went in and kind of tried to get that version up to speed with what Ubisoft wanted from the remake. But supposedly they weren't able to do that. And Montreal is now pretty much rebuilding this thing from scratch. Supposedly, it's going to have a slightly more realistic look to it. They're going in and adding new motion capture, new animation, new combat, new parkour mechanics. And Insider Gaming suggests that we could see this re-revealed sometime soon. So it's looking like you and I, Loon, will have a lot of shit to talk about this E3 summer season.
Yeah. I mean, hearing that, it doesn't do anything for me. Because what that sounds like is that they obviously run into problems, that they weren't able to fix them problems, so they're just going to make it Assassin's Creed. Is what that sounds like. I'm going for a more realistic approach, overhauling the parkour and stuff, because I don't see this being like a Prince of Persia Sands of Time level game anymore. Like them types of games don't exist
I,
really,
yeah,
unless it's 2D platformers. Like you don't see these kind of God of War, like they God of War's had to completely overhaul what it means to stay relevant and stuff like that. So this just really does feel like maybe it's just going to be on like the level of like an Assassin's Creed Mirage, a small and more realistic approach. Which if that's the case, it, I'm really not interested in it.
I'd be totally fine with it looking more realistic as long as they maintained, the rewind mechanic, the wall running, and like the emphasis on that. I don't really care about it, the visuals, other than, for me, this is just one of those games where like I played Sands of Time back in the day, and I actually played through it again recently. I didn't finish it. But I played Forgotten Sands. I was actually
Forgotten
playing
Sands, yeah.
Yeah, I was playing that this week actually and really enjoying it. So I'm kind of craving. I really want the return of 3D Prince of Persia games. I'm not much for the 2D games, but Prince of Persia is fucking hot right now, and I guess we'll go ahead and talk about that. Obviously, Lost Crown came out earlier this year. It's a lot of people's game of the year or in contention for game of the year right now. It is a juggernaut. Well, it's a juggernaut in terms of critical success. Doesn't seem like it's
And
doing much commercially.
no, but for its genre, it's doing a lot, punching way above its weight for what people expected. Like, of course, it's not going to be there, going toe to toe with the sales of Call of Duty. That would just be absolutely unrealistic. But for what it tried to achieve, it's absolutely knocked out of the park.
Yeah. And I bought the damn thing and I really didn't even play much of it. I thought it was like, yeah, okay, cool. 2D Prince of Persia is fine. But and I know it's better than that, but it's like I'm just not a big 2D guy. And that kind of ties into Prince of Persia Rogue coming from Evil Empire, the Dead Cells team. This was revealed at the Triple I Showcase, a new showcase highlighting indie games. And we'll talk about some of those here in a second. But what do you think about Prince of Persia Rogue? I think it definitely stole the show. It's releasing May 14th into early access. What do you think?
Um, if anybody's going to probably be able to do like a 2D game justice, it's definitely Dead Souls. I mean, even in its earliest conception, like you're talking games that went into early access, and you think, okay, that's like an idea, but it's not like it was just built from the get-go, and they just added and added and added and added, and that that product right now is so full of content. It's so fun. They've had cross like to the point where they've pulled in Castlevania and stuff to that property. It was that damn hot. So yeah, it's meant to be a roguelike as well, roguelite, is it
Yep.
not?
Yeah.
This one. So it's in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It can also um, pull from that, the whole time mechanic of Prince of Persia if you're gonna be having rerun. It's I can just see this being a 2D Hades and being received on par, I would say.
Yeah. I think that there's obviously a real Prince of Persia resurgence taking place. It seems Ubisoft is very, very in favor of getting behind that IP and pushing it some more, which I am very much in favor of that. Hopefully that results in some 3D games as well. But I really love the idea more than anything of Ubisoft partnering up with devs for these kind of uh, low risk, low reward titles, I would say. And which, low risk to moderate reward, I guess I should say. And
Um, I would even push it as high reward because you're talking if like Dead Cells, like it's gonna cost hardly anything to develop this game,
yeah,
and Dead Cells has shifted tons of copies. Hades shifted tons of copies for the indie space, and if you're
right.
talking like ridiculously low, but it's even if it's perceived bad, it's gonna make a profit. So
Yeah,
there is literally no risk whatsoever to Ubisoft, and they've headhunted a dev that is absolutely capable of delivering, and just
totally.
let them do their thing.
I guess I don't mean low reward in terms of the indie scale. I mean like for Ubisoft corporate
Yeah,
mindset
yeah.
to be like it's not going to sell Valhalla numbers, obviously,
No,
you
no, no.
know. But it's like for a game that Valhalla probably cost $200 million to make, for this to cost, not even 1% of that. Like that's the reward on that is crazy in terms of ROI. But in terms of just cash money being generated, it's not going to be crazy to Ubisoft standards. I don't assume. We'll see. Well, this thing
No,
could
I
blow
don't
up
think.
to
I think it'll be a good cushion. Is how I'm imagining it when they're breaking down, their quarters and stuff like that. It's going to be something where, like, you know, okay, this didn't, sell Valhalla numbers, but the cost to how much we've earned off of it is very much in the green, and that's
yeah.
helping push everything else up if it's something else is slipping ever so slightly.
It,
So,
and Ubisoft's kind of just hot right now. Like I know they put out Skull and Bones, but they were contractually obligated to that through the government. That was
yeah.
like one of those things that they couldn't avoid. But Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and then I mean even talking about Immortals Phoenix Rising. Well, a lot of people really loved that, which I know that was a little while ago. Riders Republic, it seems like people who really love extreme sports games really got into Riders Republic. They're doing a lot of different shit, which is cool. It feels like they're experimenting a little bit. Like the thing that this gives me hope for is maybe do they look at bringing in a smaller team to make a Rayman game? You know what I mean? Do they look at maybe making like a twin stick fucking Splinter Cell game, like a indie Splinter Cell
So
game?
what I think if they're gonna approach stuff like that, do what they're doing now. Don't fund a new studio because that's too expensive. Headhunt somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
So
Yeah.
Rayman, dude, just you know, Moon Studios, man. Just
Right.
throw them money and a little bit of money and just bet that here we'll get it started and stuff, and it will guarantee sell to the people that want a Rayman game.
Yeah.
So I'm not
100%.
sure who could pull off a Splinter Cell game,
I mean,
really.
I know it's very different, but like Strange Scaffold, the team that did El Paso Elsewhere, in terms of PS2 throwback games, I know that's more in the vein of Max Payne, but like I'm sure they could pull off some version of a Splinter Cell stealth oriented game. Like it'd be obviously super cheap. Or the team that made The Ascent, like even though that's
Ooh,
a twin.
they had a very big wobble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I love the game. It had really bad performance issues.
Yeah, it did.
They had to scrap the Xbox physical because they just couldn't work out how to put that on a physical, supposedly.
Mhm.
A lot of what the ending of that game is some of the worst game design I've ever seen. It was like a solid 8 out of 10 all the way up to the ending, and then it dropped to like a 4. It was so overlooked at how did you screw this up that bad?
Yeah, I'm looking around at my collection, trying to think of like a smaller team that could make a third person stealth game in the Splinter Cell space. But I mean, there's definitely. I know the Origami team unfortunately just closed a couple
Yeah.
years ago. That would be a good one in terms of just approaching it from a strict stealth angle.
This is the
Um,
thing, like stealth games, all of these studios, like the what was it, Desperados dev
right.
closed. Like all of these people who solely focused on stealth games are getting the treatment of 2D platformers got
Yeah.
like 15 years ago. Like they're just dying. They're drying up. And it's going to be one of them things where you know, 10 years from now, we're probably going to see a slew of them release into the market and big gain popularity again. But right now, nobody wants to touch them at
Yeah.
all.
And I'm not like I can't sit here and say I would much prefer a third person action adventure with stealth elements for a Splinter Cell. Splinter Cell, I hope that they really just put some money into that remake and actually get us a legit Splinter Cell game. That might not be one you can really Indiify all too well. I'm sure there's some cool way of doing it, but let's get a real AAA Splinter Cell game out the door. Um, you looking off into the distance? You finding anything?
I was just seeing like if I could pull any like names. The only thing I could think of maybe would be IO Interactive.
Oh, I mean that's a slam dunk, absolutely, without a doubt. But if I'm IO Interactive, I'm gonna stick with James Bond.
Yeah,
You,
absolutely. But
you keep your safe position.
hopefully after that, you know,
Yeah,
UB hit them up.
definitely, dude. And yeah, they I'm sure they'd be willing to take a bid on something like that. They're totally independent now. Um,
Mm.
And speaking of that showcase that we're referencing here for Prince of Persia Rogue, we also have three games each. Actually, I jotted down four that one I'm just going to quickly mention. But yeah, we have three games each. We both have our top three from the Triple I showcase. Loon, what was the number one game that caught your eye from the Triple I?
So to nobody's surprise if they've obviously been listening, big card game fan, very big card game fan. Huge Slay the Spire fan, 100% the original game. Really, really enjoyed it. So to see Slay the Spire 2 being announced is crazy to me because they've been so quiet on it. They've like every time somebody's like reached out to the studio and asked them like what's going on. Like this is a really small team as well, might I add. Like a very, very small team. And they've just been dead silent on it. They've not alluded to anything. They've not said that they're working on anything. And then they've obviously shown this, and it's really exciting, but it also gives me pause because it's I'm really hoping they don't go down the route of Darkest Dungeon 2, where it felt like the original game was very, very specific in the audience it wanted to target. And then with the sequel, because it garnered so much success, they were like, okay, we'll capitalize on that and kind of make it a lot more geared towards a wider audience. So I hope it's just Slay the Spire 2. I just hope
Yeah.
it's just another card game and just give me new cards, give me new bosses, and that's it. I'm happy with that. I don't need any huge shake-ups of stuff. Like just the core concepts of that game worked so well. So just don't stir the pot.
Yeah, I know that's one of the most beloved indie titles really of all time. So I they got big shoes to fill, but you should be good to go on that. One for me that I think would be my game of the show, the thing that really, and this is something I already knew about, but I I just man, I love this trailer, and it's for a game called Mouse, a first person shooter with this black and white kind of classic Disney style aesthetic. And I've been, like I said, I've been into this game for a while. I've been trying to keep track of it, but this trailer just looks so dope. You're seeing like a grappling hook in there. You got a
Yeah.
damn helicopter. You got melee combat with the big effects after every time you hit, every time you kick, you got the pops and the I don't know, man. This looks really, really good. It's getting a 2025. It got a 2025 release window. So we still have a ways to go to see if it actually ends up releasing and all that. But from everything we've seen so far, I just think it's so stylized and this trailer just looked a lot bigger than I had ever anything I'd ever seen from the game before. This surpassed it by a good margin in terms of scale. So Mouse would be my first shout out.
Yeah, they obviously it draws so much inspiration from Steamboat Willie and the early inception of Mickey Mouse and stuff. I think the reason we didn't see all that much before was because they were just gritting their teeth and like, come on, just come to public domain and just
Ah,
Disney, don't sue us, man. Just leave us be.
makes
And now that
sense.
that's obviously passed over to public domain, they've not been able to sue them at the arse. They've just gone, okay, all right, full steam ahead. Let's get this project rolling. Let's do this, and it does. It looks really really damn good.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even think about the public domain aspect of it. But what is your number two game from the show?
My number two would be Undermine 2, another sequel to a beloved indie roguelike. And yeah, played Undermine 1. I don't think you're not really hot on these kind of games of like Binding of Isaac and stuff like that, but it really scratched that itch for Binding of Isaac of delving deeper in it's like a dungeon crawling like original Zelda-esque game and it's just a roguelike. But it the kind of like how Hades did it, where you have an option in Hades, but this is just kind of like forced. Every time you finish a run, you gain like currency and stuff, which then allows you to buy upgrades so that you can explore different other paths and stuff that can get stronger, so it's less challenging run after run. So to see that getting a sequel, I'm all for it. Like the first game is really underrated, and I'm surprised they even got a sequel, to be honest. So I
Yeah,
didn't, not many people touched it.
this was a big showcase full of roguelikes and RTS games. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're a roguelike or RTS fanboy, this showcase has you covered. My second shout out is gonna go to Streets of Rogue 2. And I gotta say, I have been sleeping on Streets of Rogue. I anytime I see Rogue anything, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. No interest. And so I think I just avoided it based off of that alone. But I had no idea this was like an RPG sandbox with dialogue options, and like I had no idea that all of that shit was in this game. And this trailer is batshit crazy. You're seeing vehicles and boats and you're driving around this open world. It looks like a kind of top-down SNES sort of game. Um, but like a SNES GTA RPG. Like it's crazy. The trailer is nuts. And obviously I'll have it rolling in here for people to see. But my biggest thing is hopefully the roguelike element of the game isn't all that annoying and intrusive and I can just play the video game. And it has like maybe a mildly compelling story. Obviously I know hoping for a good story in the lower budget scale, like it's often hard to pull that off, especially with a game that has so much other shit going on at the same time. So I'm not expecting crazy blockbuster storytelling, but maybe something that keeps you interested. Yeah, Streets of Rogue 2. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Yeah, neither am I. So, oh yeah.
What is your number three, man?
So my third and final, which caught my eye, was a game called Kill Knight, and my God, the combat is so aggressive.
Yeah.
It's so visceral. It seems like it has a punch to it of what it's trying to achieve and stuff like that. And I'm just all for these like bullet hells as well. 3D bullet hell kind of thing, like twin stick bullet hell stuff. Like they're really really damn fun, and it looks like something that it's either going to do really, really well, or sometimes just a lot of people are just going to sleep on it and just push it to the side. And I hope that it's not being pushed to the side. I hope it gets a spotlight.
Absolutely. Yeah, the I loved the like black and red kind of
Mm.
almost pulsating color effects and shit like with the kills. Like it definitely has a like ominous sort of art style, if that makes any sense. It's real dark, foreboding. My last shout out, I'll quickly shout out Vampire Survivors is coming to PS5, no specific release date. Not a game that's really appealing to me, but worth
That
noting.
that wasn't on PS5 already?
Mm-mm.
Holy damn.
No, I think Phil Spencer was like really early to the party on Vampire Survivors and went in and
Man, what a W for Phil.
absolutely. Um, V Rising is my
Mm.
last shout out here. And I specifically want to shout out this Legacy of Castlevania addition to V Rising. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had a Castlevania itch lately. I bought Symphony of the Night last week, which we talked about. I've just kind of had this itch to have that aesthetic in a game. And I've had my eye on V Rising for a while. And uh, my biggest worry with the game is that it's just going to be really, really time consuming. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that's putting me off of the game because I know these style of games can really suck up those hundreds of hours, and I don't really want to do that. But maybe dip in for this Legacy of Castlevania add-on. I think it's like $20, which I will say seems a bit steep because I think you buy the base game, which is I
Yeah.
think $30, and then the add-on is 20. So you're talking about $50. But if it's, a 100-hour game, I guess, and if it's really solid, I guess you're getting your money's worth there. But I think it's just a new boss fight that you're getting and some cosmetics. So it does seem a bit extreme for $20.
Did you touch the Lords of Shadow games?
Mm.
If you're gonna want a Castlevania itch, both of them are backwards compatible on Xbox. Really, really under, especially that first game. Like you're talking like original God of War
Oh yeah, the
kind of stuff.
3D.
Really strong game,
Yeah,
mixed with like Shadow of the Colossus,
I
some
saw
of its
those on
boss fights.
sale. Those were on sale during the Xbox event as well, or the spring sale as well.
I think they're still on sale.
I'll have to
And I
grab
think
those.
of the options there of $50 on on V Rising. Don't get me wrong, the game is very, very good, but if you're definitely itching for like a Castlevania itch, I would push you towards the Lords of Shadow, both of them games.
Yeah, and I'm not even like a Castlevania fan. I think the only Castlevania game I've ever played is Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation 1 back in the day. I really don't have much interest in the franchise at all. I don't know why I've just kind of had an itch for that aesthetic. Not even necessarily Castlevania. Just sort of that aesthetic, that what do you call it? Like steampunk? I don't know if
Gothic.
that's yeah, just yeah, that gothic kind of uh aesthetic. I've really been wanting to play something that just has that look to it, that gritty kind of shiny blend, dark and also really pretty. Um, so I think those are all of my games that I had jotted down for the Triple I showcase, and obviously I'll have a link to the list of every game that was shown off at that showcase. But let's dive into some weird shit here. This was a saga. So Dead Space 2, Jeff Grubb, who was we talked about last week, I'll say fairly reliable. He has been fairly reliable as a leaker, as a source for, upcoming announcements and showcases. Like he's gotten a lot of that shit right. And he claimed the Dead Space 2 was being worked on, but got canceled. And EA reported later on that day to IGN that there is absolutely no validity to those claims. They said we don't normally comment on rumors, but there's no validity to this story. And the article goes on to say, as IGN understands, EA Motive never considered Dead Space 2 in the first place, which I think that makes sense to me personally because I don't think there's as much to remake with Dead Space 2. Like you're not adding in voice lines. That's already there.
Mm,
I mean, you can go in like I do kind of wonder Dead Space 1 was available, I believe, on Steam and Epic and
yeah.
Xbox, like the original version you could play. And I still firmly believe like Dead Space 1, the remake is fantastic. But if my options are $70 for the remake or $20 for the original, whenever it's not that different, like I don't really blame people for staying with the original.
Yeah, and it's so weird of that mindset of turning around and going out of your way to make a remake of the first game and then not having like the goal being that you're gonna remake the other two and continue the story. because it's already proven that it works. With Resident Evil's remakes, and that you say that a lot of people stuck by the 360 versions. I mean, Dead Space remake was top selling in January and stuff like that. Like it was shifting units very, very reliably for what it was and for how much people were on the fence about it as well. Like it did well
I
to
don't think
warrant
it
a sequel.
I don't think it cracked the top 20 best-selling games of 2023 though. I don't.
No, but that that's a horror game. It's always going to be a lot harder to breach. You know, getting into that top 10 of the usual suspects, and then you have the other things that were new IPs that were hot that year that trickle down, and then yeah.
Yeah.
But I
I
think
get
for what it was trying to do, I think it did pretty well.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that Jeff Grubb said was that it didn't Dead Space 1 didn't sell well enough to warrant a sequel, so that they ended up canceling it. And it's obviously it seems like that wasn't true in terms of what EA told IGN, but it's like I don't know. Jeff Grubb has been wrong before on a couple different occasions, and I sure he could be wrong on this one as well, but I also think that I think Jeff Grubb talks on his podcast in the same way that you and I talk. And like,
Mm.
I don't think he's necessarily at all times trying to leak things or report things. I think he's
I'll say that his
oftentimes,
word is gospel. It's just his opinion as well as to what he's looking at through his eyes and what he's drawing conclusions at. It's like what we're doing, like you said right now. Like
yeah,
from what the information I have, it seemed like it sold well enough for what it was trying to do. Like I didn't expect it to be in the top 10, top 20 even.
right. And it's like if he was talking to someone behind the scenes who worked on the game and was like, yeah, it just didn't sell all that well for us. It's like, yeah, I mean, if he relayed that on his podcast, like, I don't think that there's necessarily anything inaccurate about that, but maybe EA, the PR person, the spokesperson just believes differently. Like, you know what I mean? It's not, I don't think it's necessarily a black and white sort of conversation is never black and white. Like people are going to see things differently, and you can have two people who work at the same company who see something
Well,
drastically different.
they said that it wasn't ever in development. The thing that I ended up like reading was they had like spitballed ideas. So you're talking like a month worth of like it was in the spotlight until they just were like, okay, we'll pull the plug on it. And obviously, it if it sold many more copies, EA would have pressured them to make the sequel. Maybe it's not even EA pulling the plug. Maybe it's them being like you said, the other two games are already available to people mostly. And what can we really do?
Dead
Because
Space 2 is a
especially
masterpiece.
especially when you get to Dead Space 3, that's going to take so much effort to fix that. Is it really worth it? Wouldn't it just remake one to gain interest, leave two free, and just if you're going to do anything, just make four. Just
Yeah,
move forward.
I agree. A part of me kind of wishes that they would have just rebooted Dead Space, like made it a kind of
Mm.
like its own standalone thing, and they could begin from there, like a brand new story. Because it's like, I don't know. I, I some people feel differently about like some people really really get attached to characters lore whatever, and they don't want any sort of deviation whatsoever. I'm really never that guy. Like I'm always for like, yeah, go and fuck with it. Go a new direction. Let's slant left, slant right, figure something out over here. Like I don't know. I never hold anything to that. Like I don't think anything is precious enough to never be rebooted or like I don't know,
Mm.
fuck it, reboot it or create a brand new survival horror IP. But that's the problem with survival horror IP, especially new IP. They don't sell well, and even established
Nope.
IP, unless your name is Resident Evil, you don't sell well. Um, which is a bummer. Or it doesn't sell that well. Hopefully within the budget that they were given, hopefully it exceeded that and was profitable. Yada yada yada. The biggest bummer to me with this whole story though is that Motive, the team who worked on Dead Space 1, uh they
Back to the
I,
grindstone for them.
I'm fine with Iron Man. Them going and working on the Iron Man game, I think that's going to be dope. But they're back to the old Battlefield uh whatever the fuck you want to call it. The sweatshop. The
Yep.
yeah.
And like that newest Battlefield game did arse numbers.
God,
So
man.
you're just wasting talent now. I know that they've officially come out and said that they're no longer supporting it. Like the last season for it is going to be coming up, and then they're going to be making a new game. A new game. Just, eh. I don't know who can get excited for it anymore. This is somebody who was big into Battlefield, Call of Duty, and stuff. I just don't care,
It'd
to
just
be honest.
it'd be so exciting if that team could just go and work on a new IP. Like I have a team on Iron Man, have a team on a new IP. I don't know. I just I hate that these big AAA companies are so reluctant to work on new IP. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the entire story there with
Yeah.
Dead Space 2. A bit of a bummer across the board. I would be totally down to see a remake of Dead Space 2. It's my favorite. Um, one of my favorite survival horror games ever. But it does not seem that that is in the cards. But what does seem like it's in the cards is Final Fantasy VII Part 3 releasing as early as 2027. And this is from, I want to make sure I get this correct. Ooh, I'll have it linked down below. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but it's Audrey is like the yeah, I'll have it linked below. But it says FF7 Remake Part 3 main story has already been completed, and Nomura thinks they will perhaps start voice recording in the near future. He remarks that Kitazi proposed an idea to him about something very important to include, even though it wasn't in the original game, and Nomura pondered how to deliver. He thinks it will surely make people happy if they can do it well. Katasi hopes to deliver the amazing product for part 3 without having to sacrifice quality over time. He says the reason why FF7 Rebirth was such an efficient development was because they retained the same staff as the previous installment, and part 3 will also have the same team. Katasi mentions FF7 was actually done within 3 years since about 1 year was developing the DLC, and he hopes to be able to stick with the schedule for part 3 as well. So, 2027, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. I don't think that's too surprising with 2020 being Remake, 2024 being Rebirth. They're incredibly, incredibly efficient over there. Um,
It's not even just that. It goes even further back to the development woes of Final Fantasy 13 and the lesson that they learned from how badly managed that game was. That really gave them a wake-up call into how the industry has to be run because they were just so disorganized. Just completely, you know, no one was on the same page at all for a lot of that development, and they had to rein each other in, and them free games were kind of messy. And it seems like they've approached this really, really strongly. They've made changes which have upset some people, but you can never please everybody. But for the people like yourself, you're very much enjoying this trilogy.
yeah, pretty good.
So yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that it's such a short period of time and turnover. You're talking about this year and then 2027. They're just very, very regimented and strict now with
Yeah.
how they need to get their games out and just stop messing around, have an idea, and make sure you stick to it.
I'm assuming that after the trilogy drops, I'm assuming it'll come to Xbox and PC, I would guess.
That's what I'm hoping. I want a
Yeah.
trilogy pack. If they don't even like announce that within like 2 years after that last game drops. Big, even bigger hit to how much I like Square.
I'm pretty
Because
sure they will.
yeah,
It seems
that's
like
just free
Rebirth
money
is,
on the table.
yeah. And it seems like Rebirth isn't selling too well right now. It was reported to be tracking about half of what Remake sold in its opening, couple month window. I don't know if that's true or not. I just saw this in passing. I didn't really look into it, if I'm being honest. So I probably shouldn't be spouting that information out here. But I don't know. I mean, when 2020, when Remake came out, PS4 had already shipped like what, 100 million units, close to 100 million units compared to the 50 million or so that are out right now. So I don't, if Square was expecting similar sales, I think that would be a little bit ridiculous whenever there's half the install base of what Remake had when it launched in 2020. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think, similar to how Mass Effect, well, like 1 and 2 were exclusive to Xbox for a little bit, and then when Part 3 was on the way, they put out all the Mass Effect games on PlayStation 3. And I hope that's the same thing with what they do for Rebirth because
So
I
do
don't.
I. Please. I'm
I
so
but
sick of waiting.
for me selfishly, I just want this combat system to continue. Like I want to see more and more and more of this. You know what I mean? Like I want to Final Fantasy 8, not like I'll play every single Final Fantasy game that's like this combat style for sure. So they got to keep on selling those damn units so we can keep on getting more, and hopefully they'll just launch day and date from here on out on PC and Xbox and all that. Yeah, you have any extra thoughts on FF7 Part 3 releasing in 2027?
No, I've screamed my opinion to the mountains.
Well, I know you're going to have a take on this because this is your wheelhouse indeed. Follow up to Kingdom Come Deliverance will be revealed soon. And I saw this on Wario64's Twitter account. And then I also saw that Tom Henderson, he quoted a tweet where Shinobi 602 said, "New game reveal from Warhouse Studios, Kingdom Come Deliverance coming next." He put that in parentheses. Kingdom Come Deliverance, the developer of Kingdom Come Deliverance, coming next Thursday on April 18th. And then Tom Henderson quoted said, "Kingdom Come Deliverance 2," and with a meme of Jack Nicholson doing the crazy kind of head nod. And he said, "This isn't wishful thinking, by the way. It is Kingdom 2." So it's looking like
No,
Kingdom.
it's the ending of the first game was left completely wide open for a sequel, and on top of that, this is a studio that's been built from the ground up to just do this. They didn't exist prior to this. This is all of their funding went to making it extremely historically accurate and just making as immersive of a game as they possibly could. The thing that surprised me though is that reading through some of the comments is that a huge amount of people, like, it sold pretty damn well for what it was, but a huge amount of people skipped on it and had like the mindset of like, does this even need a sequel and stuff like that? Because they're just so out of the loop of stuff. And it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
this like if I could envision his like story as a character, Henry, this is like a third of the way done. Like you're not even halfway through his story. Like this, it's just the bit he's just got over that first hurdle, so that he can now, you know,
Yeah.
realize everything that needed to be realized in that first game. So yeah, I don't know how well it'll do because a lot of people didn't like the combat system. That was a major turn off for a lot of people. So if they double down on that and keep it in that kind of vein of a combat system, I think it will unfortunately heavily sell less copies. I think it'll take a big hit, unfortunately.
The first one sold like what, 10 mil or something? The first one did crazy, like ridiculous numbers.
Yep.
Is there anything you'd like to see cleaned up for part two? Obviously, you talked about the combat a little bit there. Is there
Um,
anything you'd like to see cleaned up from
it
the
took them
sequel?
so long to because obviously the combat's extremely demanding of the player, but even just like the core mechanics, like you couldn't save anywhere in that first game when it first launched. You had a potion, which was an alcoholic drink, which you'd have to drink to save on the spot. Otherwise, you could only save by sleeping. So they need to have these systems in place from the get-go to allow more casual audiences to be able to just get in, enjoy. Like you say with yourself, a major reason why you can't get into Souls is that you can't pause them. So if you can't save, that's even worse. At least with a Souls game, you can pause, exit immediately wherever you are in that world. When you boot it back up, you'll still be there with, if the guy was swinging an axe and it's right there, he'll be ready to kick your ass the next time you boot it up. Like even Souls games get saving on the spot done right, so they need to do something about that big time.
Well, man, you do not have long to wait to see this bad boy revealed. What was it, April 18th, right?
Yep, April
Yeah.
18th.
So
Another couple
April,
days.
couple days, man, and we will be seeing Kingdom Come 2 revealed. And sometime soon, it seems like we will also be seeing Call of Duty. A bunch of the old classic Call of Duty games coming to Game Pass. This has been I mean, this has been leaked tons of times, and it's seeming ever more likely that this will. I don't know. I'm assuming this is a showcase announcement. I would guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they've gone back and because obviously they had the massive backwards compatibility system of games, the library. A lot of the old Call of Duty games wouldn't function online for the longest time, and they've gone back and made sure every single one of them works. You're not going to do that if you're not going to be putting them into Game Pass. It just doesn't make sense. They've sidestepped that landmine because if they would have just put them into Game Pass, a million people go and be like, "Hey, I want to play the original Modern Warfare 2," and then they get into the multiplayer and it doesn't function. They would have been like, "Wow." So it's good to see that they fixed that up. And yeah, I don't think that's surprising anybody with the acquisition. These old games were bound to become Game Pass filler.
It does become interesting though, because there's also rumor right now about the Spyro Reignited Trilogy coming to Game Pass with an announcement soon for that. So then I start going, huh, okay. So it's not just Call of Duty. We're also talking about Spyro. So are we
Hmm.
talking about anything else that could
Yeah.
be announced at this showcase from the Activision Blizzard lineup? And
Oh,
then
yeah. I don't think they'll flood it. They need to pace themselves.
I got a theory I want to hit you with.
Okay.
Just a theory. I'm not saying this will happen, but timing wise, it would kind of be perfect. What if we saw Deadpool and the Wolverine game announced for Game Pass? Activision owns the right to the 360 Wolverine game and the 360 slash Xbox One PS4 Deadpool game. I mean, dude, that would be a because the movie comes out in July. So their showcase is in June. I think that would be hype as fuck.
The only problem with that is it's not backwards compatible right now, either of them games.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and they've shut down supposedly. There was rumors that they've got an initiative going, but the actual, the backwards compatibility team have been closed for a long time. That they had a Deadpool game on 360, and then it also got a PS4 and Xbox One port, so that could be put in there. But the license has expired a long time ago, so they're not currently selling that game either. But there's a lot of up in the air
I
about
wouldn't
that.
I wouldn't imagine it'd be that fucking hard to get the license. I mean, they're already
No,
working with
I don't
Marvel
think
for
it would be.
Blade.
Yeah, but
I,
it's also, we don't know the behind the scenes of, what's their budget looking like this year. They got Persona in the early in the year. You're talking because the thing that I think that they're probably gonna do, and I'll happily be wrong at this, I think that new Call of Duty of this year will launch straight day one Game Pass.
I don't think so. I think that
That's my personal, but I think that they will just set that as a standard and try and scoop as many players off of PlayStation into. into the Game Pass ecosystem that are addicted to Call of Duty.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a contractual thing where they can't launch it.
Oh, is
And the,
there?
I
Okay,
think
I've missed that
so.
completely.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, that would
You
make
could be right.
sense because that's a massive power move,
Yeah.
and
I,
that's why I was thinking. But yeah, it would make maybe they just put the entire from before portfolio straight into Game Pass
yeah. I could
because
be
they're going
wrong
to
on
be
that.
probably connected anyway through
Yeah.
multiplayer.
Yeah. I could be wrong on that about Call of Duty. I'm not 100% certain on that. But something else I'm not too certain on, but you did reference it a second ago. Persona. It is hot off the press. This was just reported yesterday. That Persona 1 and 2 are likely getting remade. And this is coming from Midoriya. Midori is a very reliable Atlas leaker. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
No,
I know
not
you're
familiar with the leakers. But yeah, go on, sorry.
yeah, no, I know you're a lot more in the Atlas space, kind of more knowledgeable about this universe than I am. I'm not really familiar with them either. But he or she they whatever is supposedly very very reliable, and this tweet here says Persona 1 and 2 need a remake. More than 4 is not a hot take at
Hmm.
all, guys. I'm pretty sure Atlas knows this too. Let's all take a deep breath. And then Midori tweets, yes, P1 and P2 are going to receive remakes too. And then someone replies and says, praying she means remakes and not remasters. To be safe, I will call it updated form for right now. So, okay, she. Yeah, but to be safe, I'll call it updated form for right now. So it's not necessarily 100% remake, but some sort of P1, P2 revision.
I so being a very new fan to the series, like you're talking like the past few years, when I was getting into it, I watched tons of like YouTubers that have been in that space for a very, very long time and having like hour-long videos and stuff because I just couldn't get enough of it. I will believe this when I see it because Atlas have shunned Persona 1 and 2 for a very, very long time. Like their baby child has been 3, 4, and then obviously 5 blew up, and that's kind of like taken the spotlight. But like they've had no interest. They've had plenty of chances to re-release Persona 1 and 2, and they just haven't. And they never really touched it. You're talking even like extended media and stuff. Like Persona 3 even has like a manga. Persona 1 and 2 don't in English and stuff, to my knowledge. So, and also the thing which I wrote down here, I can't remember if it's Persona 1 or 2. It has, well, all of the Persona games have very strong themes, but it has a very strong theme of like, well, I'm fairly certain Hitler's in one of the games. Like,
Oh,
it
Jesus.
has a massive like theme where you're battling like that and stuff like that. So if they're going to be can you do you
Oh, so
think that
Hitler
they could
is Hitler the
you
bad guy?
yeah yeah
Oh, yeah, fuck yeah.
you think that that wouldn't get much flack?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I would think. I mean, if you're trying to kill Hitler, like I don't think anyone should object to that,
No, I know that it's just very a very touchy subject and stuff like
especially
that.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and even yeah, especially like I'm sorry, like history speaks it's Japan also touching on that subject as well, which makes it even more, you know, hard.
Right.
So yeah.
That
But
she.
if this is 100% accurate, even if it just gets re-releases, I'll be happy with that. So all
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. She also tweeted that Metaphor ReFantazio will not be delayed and that it will launch this year. So, I mean,
Does that have a
hey,
date? Do we
they're
know?
saying fall, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think their window is fall. But my thing was like, I was just expecting it to be a 2025 game, but it seems like it will
What
be
a That's
2024.
4 titles then this year from them.
Big
That's
dogs.
crazy. That's P3, Unicorn Overlord, overhauling Shin Megami Tensei 5 and putting that on everything, and then this. Uh, Man,
Yeah.
Atlas is. You're talking about some other people red hot. Like they are scorching. Like they're white hot.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And Refantasia looks sick as hell, dude. I think I might jump into that. I like that setting. And just I think it's older characters if I'm not mistaken in Refantasio. So I think I might jump in to that this year. But that is the news, my friends. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. I know that's a juggernaut
It's
of
a
an episode there.
chunky news week again.
It was a lot of, really, I think we probably talked about Fallout for a damn hour, so that's my fault. I apologize for that. Maybe next week we'll chop it up. We'll see. We can't, well, what is, we can't make the news. We can only discuss it, whatever the hell. I think I said the same thing last week, but I don't even remember what the hell I said. But
Don't make the news. We just talk about it.
absolutely. I think that's a succinct, nice way to put it. But we appreciate all of you for tuning in. And Loon, I appreciate the hell out of you for joining to discuss this shit with me. This is I've told you behind the scenes before, but goodness gracious, man. This is a joy to do opposed to slogging through, talking to a wall and making videos solo. Yeah, can't lie. I can do it every now and then, but man, I really get to the point where I just absolutely despise doing that shit. I much prefer podcasting opposed to YouTubing. So I appreciate you for lending me your time, which is definitely I'll work on not monopolizing as much of your time. I'll try to trim down my thoughts next week, man, but I definitely do
Yeah, it's no
appreciate you for joining me.
problem at all, man. No problem at all. Thank you.
Well, people, we shall see you soon. Actually, we'll be recording again. We have another video that'll be dropping later in the week, but we appreciate you for stopping by. Hit me in the comments with your thoughts on the news, the discussions, all of that good shit, and we shall see you next week. Well, actually, we'll see you this week, but we'll also see you next week as well. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
See you later.